this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
There's a difference between liking a house and actually getting it. Redfin is built to make up that difference and close the gap between finding and owning the home for you. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. So when you find a home you love, you're not a step behind when it comes to making an offer. That means less watching great homes disappear and more focus on the one you'll call home. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Hey, this is U.S. Olympic gold medalist Tara Davis-Woodhull.
And I'm U.S. Paralympic gold medalist Hunter Woodhull.
As athletes, our lives are about having a clear path.
And a team that you can absolutely trust.
So when it came to getting the best mortgage,
we chose PennyMac.
PennyMac is proud to be the official mortgage provider of Team USA and you.
Learn more at pennymac.com. PennyMac Loan Services, LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 35953. Licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Conditions and restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year. You can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Hey everybody, Robert Evans here, and I wanted to let you know this is a compilation episode. So every episode of the week that just happened is here in one convenient and with somewhat less ads package for you to listen to in a long stretch if you want. If you've been listening to the episodes every day this week, there's going to be nothing new here for you, but you can make your own decisions.
Hey there, listeners. This is producer DJ Daniel. The following episode was recorded before the horrible events in Monterey Park. The team will release an episode addressing the situation once more details have emerged. Thank you and enjoy.
It's Lunar New Year's! Yay! Happy New Year's! It's the New Year's special. It's me, Mia. I've got Shireen with me.
Yeah.
How are you doing? I guess it's not the New Year yet while we're recording it, but it will be by the time you hear this.
That counts.
Yeah.
I'm good. I got a cat recently and I called her Bunny. And then I learned later that this year is the year of the rabbit. So yeah. I feel really happy about that. I feel
it's gonna
really
be the cat's
pumped
year.
for this year. Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
So I'm good.
That's an amazing having new cat is an amazing way to start any year.
Yes, I agree.
This is very exciting. Do you know what else is very exciting? Transitions.
Please.
They pay me to do this.
Yes.
For some reason. All right. This year we're going to talk about Chinese restaurant syndrome and the whole sort of anti-MSG craze.
Yes.
So
that's always been so big. I don't know. I grew up in a diverse area in San Diego, but we would always go to pho like regularly. And the no MSG was like all over the menu and everything. It's like this thing that, I mean, every restaurant I went to, basically, it was just like, come to us. There's no MSG. So I'm really curious how it started, because growing up, I was like, okay, MSG is bad, I guess. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I feel like it wasn't as intense where I was growing up, but that was like, I don't know. It was a very white suburb. But and people were still freaked out about MSG, but it wasn't. But like the Asian restaurants didn't like talk about it ever. I don't know, but it was still very sort of like I remember I would go to like eat dinner with like white families and they'd be talking about MSG and I was like, what?
Yeah, it was a hot topic for a good amount of time.
Yeah. Having now talked about MSG for a bit, we should ask, like, what is MSG?
Yes.
The answer, okay, so MSG stands for monosodium glutamate, which is, it's just a salt, basically. Okay. It's salt with like glutamate in it. It has a bunch of umami in it. I'm gonna read this thing from Kenji from Serious Eats, because every single article that starts about this has like this exact paragraph in it. So I'm just going to read it instead of trying to rewrite this paragraph that everyone's written.
I respect that.
MSG is a sodium salt of glutamic acid, an A amino acid. It was first isolated in 1908 by Japanese biochemist Kikuei Ikeda, who was trying to discover what exactly gave dashi, the Japanese flavored broth with kombu, Japanese giant sea kelp, its strong savory character. Turns out that kombu is packed with glutamic acid. It was Ikeda who coined the term umami, which roughly translates as savory, to describe the glutamic acid and other similar amino acids. Until that point, scientists had only discovered the other 4 flavors sensed by the tongue and the soft palate: salty, sweet, sour, and bitter. By 1909, pure crystalline MSG extracted from the abundant kelp in the sea around Japan was being sold under the brand name Ajinomoto, roughly element of flavor. The company exists to this day. Now, keep that in mind. That's going to be important to the last part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But, in the meantime, around 1908, once this is discovered, it turns into this sort of enormous industry. Here's from a pretty good Men's Health article about it. By the 1940s, a number of American companies were producing MSG domestically for the consumer. The most famous being Accent. Okay, there's like, it's spelled it's Accent, but it's spelled AC'Cent.
That's not.
Yeah.
No. That's you lost me. Yeah. No.
Accent.
Yeah.
Which was advertising is a bleak place.
Oh yeah, that's a different episode. I think maybe it's part of this one too.
Partially, yes. Also partially this episode, but. Yeah, the most famous one being Accent, which was advertised as pure monosodium glutamate that, quote, makes food flavors sing. Various food magazines and community cookbooks featured the additive as an ingredient in the likes of fried chicken wings and barbecue sauce recipes. By 1969, 58 million pounds of MSG were being produced in the U.S. per year, says food historian Ian Mosby, Ph.D., for an entire generation. The ingredient was presented in a dizzying array of food products: breakfast cereals, TV dinners, frozen vegetables, baby food, and soup, produced by beloved brands such as Campbell's and Swanson, which today offer products free of MSG additives. And, okay, if you think about this for a second, it's actually really weird that MSG is thought of as a Chinese thing. Because, MSG, all told, has only been around for 100 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's heavily used in the U.S. for 30 or 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really in China for that much longer than it is in the U.S., and it's used in just a bunch of American food.
How did that start? Do we know how that association started and continued?
Yeah, we'll get it. It mostly has to do with it has to do with restaurants, and it specifically has to do with the part that we're getting to about this letter, which is weird. I will say there are a lot of Chinese families that just use MSG for their cooking.
Mm-hmm.
My house never did it because we're lazy, and most of our cooking involves as few ingredients and prep as possible. So we just
I think it's also really in Vietnamese food. I feel uses it a lot too. That was my first association with it. So I just associate. I mean, because I was 14. I just was okay, this is Vietnamese. But that's really interesting to just know
Well, it's originally Japanese too.
Yeah, I mean, it's Asian. It's Asian. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's just interesting. People in the U.S. were just I don't know. It's it was in everything. People in the U.S. were also just using it to cook food. This is also a thing that people in China use a lot too. So it's not that Chinese people don't do it. It's just that the moment everyone got it, they were like, "Oh my god, this makes our food taste better. We should use more of it."
Of course. I mean, I'm assuming once it got demonized, it was oh, this is a Chinese thing, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
so I will be patient.
Yeah. So this is in fact the next thing. So nobody really cared about it until 1968 rolled around.
Wow. So for those 60 years, MSG was
everyone just used it.
King.
Nobody.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm forgetting where I'm going to read a part from this journal article, and I've forgotten to put in what journal it's from because I'm a hack and a fraud. I think it's the journal Natural Health. 60% sure about that.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, sure. It's from some journal. Some doctors wrote it. Quote, in the spring of 1968, Dr. Robert Homan Guo wrote to the New England Journal of Medicine asking the assistance of the journal's readership in identifying the source of a phenomenon that Dr. Guo labeled the Chinese restaurant syndrome, CRS. Numbness of his back and neck palpitations, and general weakness after he consumed meals in Chinese restaurants. Dr. Guo hypothesized that the source of his syndrome might be a reaction to the soy sauce, the cooking wine, the high sodium content of the food, or to the flavor-enhancing monosodium glutamate, MSG. Within 2 months, the journal received a flurry of letters from readers who had noticed a similar phenomenon after eating restaurant-prepared Chinese food. So, this is the start of this whole thing. And there's one thing I need to point out right away that is in almost every single article about this that is wrong, which is that this article says that he's talking about Chinese food, which is true, but very specifically, and this is going to be very important in about 10 minutes. Well, I don't know, 10 minutes. It's going to be important soon, which is he specifically has a thing about how this is about northern Chinese food. And, you know, this is something that everyone sort of misses. The other thing that's interesting about this is that, you know, he says it could be MSG, but, you know, he's treating MSG exactly like all of the rest of the other stuff that's in the food, right? He lists soy sauce, he lists cooking wine, he's like, okay, maybe there's too much salt, right? Like he's not really doing an MSG thing. But everyone who reads this immediately focuses on the MSG. Okay, so before I started researching this, I had heard that this whole letter was actually fake and was actually a prank. And, you know, this is a thing that's like, it's kind of like, okay, so the story behind this was that it was supposed to have been a prank by a white guy named Dr. Steele who made it up as a joke. And this is a sort of like a okay, so this story is not true. The story I'm about to say is not true. It turns out this letter is actually real, but there was basically a story that went around that it was this guy named Dr. Steele who had made it up as a way to get published in a journal for like a bet, because like Dr. Steele like claimed responsibility for it, and that got out to researchers. But and so for a bit, everyone was like, "Oh my god, this whole thing was started by a prank." But it turns out that's also not true. So This American Life figured out that Dr. Robert Homan Guo is a real guy. Dr. Steele had pretended that he said that he made up the name. It's not true. There's a real guy. They talked to his family and his colleagues, and all of them were like, "Oh no, Guo like wrote this thing." And interestingly, there's a lot of racism here too, because Dr. Steele had claimed that Homan Guo, which is okay. So this is where things get weird. I'm saying Guo because that's how you actually pronounce it. It's spelled HOMANKWOK.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. So this is some.
That's not what I thought.
Yeah. So this is some Wade Giles bullshit. The previous attempt to sort of Romanize Chinese was this thing called Wade Giles, and it is the bane of my existence. It's dog shit. Hi, this is Mia in post. I made a mistake here. KWOK is actually the standard Cantonese spelling of Guo. Sorry about that. I am a dipshit who does not speak Cantonese. Enjoy the rest of the show. They heard someone say Guo and were like, "This is KW." It's like, no, it's not. Please.
That's bad.
It's literally the worst.
Bad.
Like if you ever, you know, sometimes if you're looking at Chinese things, you'll see something that's just spelled really weirdly. Like, or for example, like the way that Chiang Kai-shek is spelled is actually like is actually a Wade Giles thing. Like there's a whole bunch of like things that are like that. Yeah, that you can find.
I didn't know that. That explains a lot, but
yeah,
unfortunately.
and part of the other thing that's happening too here is that like, so, and then this is also going to be important later. Guo is a Cantonese last name. But it gets really, really confusing really quickly if you don't know what's going on, because if you're reading a word that's in Chinese in the US, it could either be in Mandarin or in Cantonese, and it also could be either written with the terrible Wade Giles one, or it could be in Pinyin, which is like the one that's actually sort of usable. But Dr. Steele, so again, the way it's written is HOMANKWOK. And Dr. Steele claims that he wrote it to be like human crock of shit, like ho man crock. Yeah.
excuse me?
People believed
Dr.
him.
Steele needs to be
yeah, well, he's dead, so
buried
fuck him.
Again.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's so disgusting.
Yeah, like this is so racist, and it's like, oh,
God.
you know, but this, like, people believe this for a while because, yeah, I don't know. But okay, so eventually people figure out that it's not true, and I'm going to read something from the This American Life piece where they talk about how they figured out that it was actually like that Homeng Guo was like actually a real guy. And when you read the original letter, there are details that seem more likely to come from her father, which is Guo's father, than from Howard. Howard Steele is the doctor. Like when he said he moved to the U.S., which the real Dr. Guo did, and how he's very specific, the syndrome happens with northern Chinese food. In the 60s, how many white guys in Philadelphia could have made that distinction? Also, Homeng Guo is an actual Cantonese name. What are the odds that Dr. Steele threw together random-sounding Chinese syllables to arrive at that? So, okay, I read that, and I had a revelation. I cracked this case wide the fuck open. I figured it out. I figured out what was going on with this letter. Okay,
I'm so excited for this. This is
I've been hyping this up for like hours. I'm so excited.
So some BTS of this. We have like a group chat essentially, and I wasn't sure if I could make this recording, but then Mia dropped that bomb, being like, I have this big breakthrough, and I was like, I gotta be there. I just gotta be there. And so I kicked James out because James couldn't make the time I could make, and so here I am. I apologize.
Right. I have not told Shireen what the breakthrough is. So this is you're all gonna learn at the same time.
To hear. Yes.
Okay, so Homeng Guo is Cantonese, right? And he specifies in this letter that this is about northern Chinese food. My thesis right here, right now, is that this whole letter is actually about Cantonese anti-northern sentiment. This is a whole ass thing in China. So Canton, or like the region that was called Canton, the West, is like where Cantonese people are. This is the very south of China, right? There is a whole ass thing in China that like people from the north, people from the south hate each other. It's actually very weird. So my family is like half from the north, half from the south. And like when my mom was growing up, she would like get made fun of for how she like rolled dumplings, because people were like, "Oh, you roll dumplings like a southerner," and she's like, it is a whole fucking thing. It's like people hate each other.
Yeah, I mean, how would you know those intricacies? You know what I mean? Unless you were from there or like had history there. That's
yeah. Well, I mean, I would say this is the thing that's persisted in the U.S. too. You still run into this stuff. Like there are definitely like Cantonese restaurants where like you probably shouldn't speak Mandarin. They're like there's like this is still a thing. It's not really talked about very much because it's like. It's kind of an internal Chinese thing, but you know, the one place you actually really got to see this, you got to see this from during the Hong Kong protests on both sides, because, like, okay, so there's a strain of the sort of like there's a strain of Chinese nationalism that's very sort of like, it was doing this like really virulent sort of like anti-Southern racism from, you know, you get this from a lot of the Chinese nationalists on the CCP side. There's another faction of like the Hong Kong protesters whose like thing was like, we're not actually Chinese because we're not like the Northerners who are communist and like evil, which is really funny because like, you know, like, okay, if you run through the actual history of communism in China, it's like, okay, like one of the largest communist like strikes that ever happened was in Hong Kong. Like, sure, fine, but you know. But and obviously, like I'm simplifying all of this enormously because it's very complicated. There's a lot of regional shit that's going on here. Yeah,
but so your thesis is that the person that started all of this was like maybe like from the south, or like just like
I mean that is definite. Like that is like that is the most Cantonese ass name I've ever heard. Like that guy is definitely from southern China. And yeah, my thesis is specifically it's this Cantonese guy going, "Hey, fuck those Northerners. I hate their asses. I hate their food. Their food ain't shit. Eating it makes me sick." But because this is the U.S., the subtlety of this gets lost, and everyone just runs with it as like Chinese restaurant syndrome. Even though this is my theory. This is like kind of semi-obscure like Chinese like internal grudge making.
Yeah, that's the origin point. Like knowing the origin point makes a lot more sense now, to be honest. Like why would it just be some random like, why would he specify a region, like a very specific region. That's just, I don't know.
I don't know. That's my theory. I could be wrong about this, but it fits with all of the details.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it checks out. It checks out, I think.
Yeah. So okay. All right. So this letter happens, and there's like a flurry of letters from other people talking about this, and. Okay, I want to talk about why this got picked up the way it does. I'm going to read a bit more.
This is still in 68.
Yeah, this is still in 68. Okay. I'm going to read from every single article in this also goes exactly the same way. So I'm going to read from the Men's Health version so you get this section of it before I talk about why it's, I think, like not sufficient to capture what was happening. Mosby describes the late 50s as a time of heightened anti-Chinese sentiment. By the 1960s, domestic and international politics had shifted towards a fairly clear anti-communist agenda. In fact, he says, during this time, anti-Chinese sentiments were so widespread and accepted that most Americans didn't consider their apprehension to be racial bias. Now, this is true as far as it goes. But we need to go to ads. And when we come back from ads, I will tell everyone what else was going on during that week.
Hell yeah.
All right, and we're back. We're talking about how this like letter to like a journal in New England suddenly became an entire like national American thing. Okay, so the way this happened is that this got picked up by the news. Now, there's a huge New York Times article about this. And that article is published on May 19th, 1968. Now, Shireen, do you know what else was going on in May of 1968?
I don't know. I've heard a lot of shit went down in the 60s.
Yeah, so
please tell me.
This is like smack dab in the middle of May 68 in France. This is like 1 week after the night of the barricades.
Wow.
3 days before this was published, the Situationists, who are like this like ultra left student organization, who at this point are occupying the Sorbonne, like they have fully taken control of their campus. They have run the cops out. They have run the administration out. 3 days before this is published, the students at the Sorbonne, reacting to a factory occupation that they heard about, send out this famous communique calling for the occupation of all factories in France. And like, it fucking happens. Like the workers in France take control of like a huge portion of France's factories. Like the Renault factories are under control of the workers. Like, yeah, by this time, like this is happening, right? The police have like, the police are fighting them, but they're losing. 2 days before this article is published, the Sorbonne sends this to the Chinese consulate. Quote, "Shake in your boots, bureaucrats. The international power of the workers' councils will soon wipe you out. Humanity won't be happy until the last bureaucrat is hung with the guts of the last capitalist. Long live the factory occupations. Long live the great Chinese proletarian revolution of 1927 betrayed by the Stalinist bureaucrats." It goes on and on. Like,
wow.
This is what they're sending to the Maoists.
Right.
Right. Like that is how far left these people are. Like they are telling the Maoist, "Shake in your boots, bureaucrats. The international power of workers' councils will soon wipe you out." Like, it is wild in France.
That's so intense. Yeah, I mean, the fact that this is happening all during all of that. That's not something. I don't know. That's notable.
It's really important. And I have never read an article that actually puts this together. And I just think it's not just that going on, right? Like, you know, if you look at the situation in France, they are a week and a half out from de Gaulle, who is the president, literally fleeing the country because he's so convinced that they're about to lose the country to communism. Like, well, and I should say, when I say communism, by the way, part of that message to the Maoists is down with the state, long live revolutionary Marxism. So like these people are Marxists who have gone like so far left they've essentially become anarchists. It's wild. I mean, you know, and also what's happening, like the Prague Spring is happening during the middle of this. This is also like, this is a month after the Holy Week uprising in the US, which is so after MLK was killed, there were these like probably the most intense riots the US has ever seen. Like even more so than like the ones we saw in 2020. The Holy Week riot, like there were thousands of paratroopers were being deployed to like kill rioters.
Shit.
Yeah, like it was fucking nuts. Yeah, like that was probably the closest like some of the closest the U.S. has ever had to just like actually having a revolution, the government losing control of the entire country. And while this article is coming out, like there are still, even in May, the Holy Week uprisings in April, but like even in May, there are still people on the streets fighting the cops, like while this article is being written. And you know, if you look at
there's something about 68. Someone put a curse on that entire year.
I mean, it's wild. Like May 60, like that year is just the year like the entire world went into revolt. I mean, there's I can't remember if they actually successfully overthrew the government. They like almost overthrew the government of Pakistan. Like a whole bunch of students get shot in Mexico because they were trying to bring down the government. Like it's everywhere. There is all this stuff going on. And you know, also the other thing that's happening is we're 2 years into the Cultural Revolution, and it's kind of interesting because by 68, we're kind of into the backlash phase of the Cultural Revolution, where most of what's happening is that the sort of various rebel factions that formed in 1967 and 1966 are just getting like slaughtered by the sort of like state factions. And it's the Cultural Revolution. It's really complicated, but like by this point, the sort of like revolution part of it has like kind of calmed down, and it's more the state in its sort of new form taking control. But you know, if you're living through this, right, it looks like the Cultural Revolution happens in 66, and then you get 67, and then suddenly there was a Cultural Revolution happening literally everywhere. And this is the context of the MSG scare like kicks off in, right? It starts in like right in the middle of arguably the two most radical months of the entire 20th century.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is the kind of shit that starts like just an absolute mania in the American mind that is powerful enough that like 60 years later it's still around.
I mean, it feels like it happening at such like a manic time. Like people were probably already like kind of feeling that energy, right?
Yeah,
so
like everyone's
it was directed everywhere, even at this article.
Yeah, and I genuinely think if this had happened 2 months later or 2 months earlier, I don't think there would have been like a big scare about it. Like it might have been a thing that stuck around for a bit, but I think the fact that the New York Times article came out exactly like in the middle of May 68, and that like the original one comes out like right before the original article that gets sent to the thing comes out like a couple of weeks before the Holy Week uprising. I think it was the fact that it was exactly in this moment where everyone on Earth is, if you're living through this, like this is the capital R revolution, like has come. And, you know, and that shattered everyone's brains. Like, I don't know. I wonder, like, do people remember what it was like when the height of 2020 was happening? Like just how sort of wild, like it was just psychologically.
I'm telling you, there was like an energy.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like this collective strange. I mean, like obviously it's different than it was in 68, but I really do agree with you. Like if it happened in January, I don't think it would be a thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And, you know, so the other thing that's interesting about this whole sort of like Chinese restaurant syndrome is that you can actually track its spread like across other countries by sort of like moments of like peak anti-Chinese like sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
And also anti-Japanese sentiment to a lesser extent, because that sort of replaces the anti-Chinese stuff by the time you get to the 80s and 90s. But, well, not replaces, but it's like the dominant mode of like, we have a person we need to be afraid of in East Asia.
Right. Yeah.
But there's an interesting, okay, so if you look up, like if you're looking for like medical stuff about Chinese restaurant syndrome, one of the things you will find is a case report of the Indian Journal of Critical Medical Care from 2017 claiming that they were treating a patient who got Chinese restaurant syndrome and like couldn't speak because the thing in the back of his throat had like inflamed. And, you know, and they had this whole thing about how like this is like a serious disorder. And they specifically cited that letter to the editor from 68.
Wow. The power of that fucking thing.
And, you know, okay, so if you look at what was going on in India in 2017, and it turns out the thing that's going on is like a giant rise in anti-Chinese sentiment culminating in the 2017 Indian-Chinese border incident, where, do you remember when all those guys were like beating each other to death in the mountains with sticks?
Yeah,
border.
I do vaguely remember that. I've just associated many times in my life, and especially post-pandemic, my brain is broken, but I do vaguely remember that.
I had kind of forgotten about it, and then I looked at this article and saw this in 2017. I was like, wait, hold on, didn't that happen in 2017? Wow. And it's funny because Rise Ascension Rise Again. Suddenly, Chinese restaurant Ascension reappears. Wow. It's like, woo! It's really incredible. It's an incredible set of brainworms.
This is definitely not on topic, I guess, but even just seeing like COVID being blamed on China, like there's always a way for ignorant people just to point the finger at China, which is really fucking shitty. It's so fucking shitty.
I think it's this sort of like one of the things you sort of need to have a national project is that in order for you to be like a nation, you have to have people who aren't part of the nation.
Right.
And the US does this pretty effectively. They can have this sort of rotating cast of people who like aren't like from the nation, right?
Yeah. If you want to stay in, there are people that need to stay out.
Yeah, so sometimes it's with Mexico. Sometimes you get it with sort of like internal subversion from like black people or like indigenous people.
Yeah.
But they have this rotating cast. China's always one of the ones they come back to because it's just big and there's a lot of them. And, and
for whatever reason, people are easily feared by it. Like, I think it's because like it's unknown and maybe people don't understand it very well that don't look into it themselves and want to fucking be educated. But for whatever reason, people fear it so easily, and it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it sucks. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna do an ad break, and then we're gonna talk about more of this stuff because it keeps going. And we're back. All right. So obviously, we're dealing with sort of anti-Chinese sentiment and anti-Japanese sentiment, as anti-Japanese sentiment escalating as the 60s turned into like the 80s and 90s, but there's more going on here. Part of the reason, back like this in theory could have been about like soy sauce, right? Like there's a lot of things that they could have picked out of that to be the sort of thing everyone freaks out about, but they picked MSG. And part of the reason they picked MSG is that this is the period when people start like figuring out that food additives exist. And people start to get really sort of touchy about it. And actually, Ralph Nader, famous.
I remember that guy.
Yeah, so he's around in the 60s. Because he's old as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's okay. So I give him credit for like he has probably saved as many lives as like any other single American you can name by being the guy who like lobbied to have seatbelts in cars being mandatory.
Right. Yeah.
A thing that was not before because the U.S. is a like truly deranged country.
Yeah. He wasn't half bad most of the time.
Yeah.
He was fine.
But come on, he's also one of the guys who's like the big pusher for getting the U.S. government to study MSG and a lot of other food additives in like 1969. So, and like there's a bunch of other food additives that they're studying the health effects of. And on the one hand, it probably is good to study the effects of like food additives because like, I don't know, companies do stuff that sucks all the time. And so it is good to study what's in your food. On the other hand...
Wait, okay, this is going to sound really ignorant, so I apologize. Where, again, if you already said this, where was it found? Where was MSG found? Is it created in a lab? Like, what is the molecule?
By this point, it's basically created in a lab. The first time someone was able to distill it was they did this whole distillation process from seaweed.
Yes, seaweed.
Yeah, but by this point, it's no worries. Yeah, no, like even by like the early 1920s, I think it's mostly being produced artificially, which is why everyone's sort of at it. But like
it's easily added to food.
Yeah, and it makes it taste better. But it is something that like you can find it like in dashi, like you can find it in like soup broths and stuff like that are made from seaweed. So it's not like.
I mean, I didn't know that. I've known about MSG for most of my life, and I never like for whatever reason. Growing up, we always associate it with sodium, like salty.
Yeah,
things,
well, I mean, it is right. Like it is a kind of salt.
Yeah,
but like I don't know. Like people have this whole thing like, oh, it's artificial. It's like yeah, we make it artificially, but like it's not. It's not like it's not a thing that you can get out of plants. It's just that we don't do it that way because it's easier.
Yeah, I mean. the source of it is not artificial, but also like you're gonna be a stickler on this one thing when you eat like I don't know so many other and drink so many other things. Like there was cocaine and coke. I don't know. Like it's just there's other things out there.
Every American like in 1969 is like by their body volume drinking 2 pounds of lead a year. So
exactly.
like it's
so
like
this is the thing you're gonna stick on.
Yeah, well, and you know, and this is sort of the problem with what Ralph Nader is doing with this sort of like pushing the government investigation of it is that like you know like I don't know how racist 1969 Ralph Nader was. My guess is that I don't think that his big thing was we need to study this because it's the dirty Chinese like salt or whatever. I think he just wanted a thing to study food additives. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. I've looked into this exactly 0%. But like, you know, the problem is that once this sort of racial panic is going, like you can't put the sort of cork back in the bottle.
Right.
And you know, okay, so there have been a bunch of studies about this, and like, but you know, okay, so the problem with what's happening is that because of the way MSG has been sort of racialized, like the studies don't matter. Like it just does not matter what anyone actually sort of writes about it until you get an actual cultural change because the science like is irrelevant.
They have the study to justify a bunch of things, and that's the only study they care about. Like,
it's like the fake vaccines cause autism shit. Like,
right?
No, they just believe this. They have one paper that's literally a joke.
Exactly, and that's the one they hold on to.
Does it? Yeah, there
could be 17 others that disprove it, but like no,
there's like a million others. Like that. And by the way, that study, I want to point this out. The methodology of that study was they asked parents who thought their kids had developed autism because of the vaccine if they thought their kids had developed autism because of the vaccine, and then the parents said yes, and that's the study.
That's the study.
Yeah.
That's not a fucking study. That's
it's
a poll.
Not. It's a joke.
That's
like
a poll.
It's literally a Twitter poll that like got published and then retracted because it was a Twitter poll, right? Like this is the scientific basis of all this bullshit. And this is,
I guess what qualifies as a fucking study then? Like
you could I don't know. You can publish fucking anything if you put your mind to it. This is what I'm telling all of you. Like follow your dreams. Try to get something published. They published this bullshit. So like you know,
I'm gonna do a study.
The other thing specifically, like there's a real problem here with this is a specific thing with medical studies because like you can have a medical study that you get published with a sample size of 1 because it's you found a thing in a guy and you're like, oh, I'm gonna publish this. But you like medical studies, like, oh, you can just like you could publish any bullshit and like it sucks. But okay, so all right, like lots of after this, there are lots of studies by lots of people, and like mostly what they find is they can't find any. Okay, so there's some like initial studies that like find some alarming stuff in mice, but the problem with these studies is that what they're doing is okay, yeah, it turns out if you take a mouse and you just like fill a syringe with MSG and inject them with it, it's bad for them.
Oh, but, you think so? Like,
yeah, like oh
mouse.
Shit. Yeah, you injected a mouse with pure salt. And like, bad things happen. Like, yes, if you took a human being and you injected fucking a third of a cup of MSG directly into their veins, it would probably be bad for them.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I would
it's like
so.
Okay, you know, right? And they found the conclusion from that was basically like, okay, if someone ate like a third of a cup of MSG raw, having not eaten for like 48 hours, it would probably do things that are not great for you.
But can't you say that about a bunch of other fucking things?
Yeah, I don't know. If you didn't eat for 24 hours and ate a third of a cup of salt, like that's not good for you. Like, no. Don't do that. So, like, you know, okay.
Very, very specific circumstances have to line up for you to have any reaction to MSG.
So there's a study from 2000 where they also, this is also another empty stomach study, by the way, because no one has ever been able to replicate like any of these results with a person eating food that has MSG in it. They've never been able to do it. They've been able to get some results if you have people eat like basically pure MSG and have not eaten any food like around it. Yeah, it's like, okay.
That's useless because the molecule at that point, it probably interacts with other things. And that, you know what I mean? Like if it's just by itself, it's not the actual... I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not very good at chemistry, so I'll let the chemistry nerds argue about this.
I did fail AP Chem, so Same. Great. Yeah.
Oof. I luckily only
admitted
had to
that
take
right-
chemistry in.
Oops.
So I just didn't take AP Chem because I was like, I suck. I took A Chem like my freshman year, and I was like, let's
It's
not do
hard.
this again. I can't do this. I'm gonna take physics
Chemistry is
instead.
the thing. I wanted to be a psychiatrist for a really long time, but
Mm-hmm.
failing AP chemistry and just experiencing chemistry, I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, it sucks. It's the worst.
Yeah.
But okay, so the reason I was talking about the like vaccines cause autism,
Right.
autism shit, is that there was another thing with MSG where people were claiming that it was causing asthma, and they had another like an incredibly elaborate pseudoscience bullshit about like MSG like
That's so weird.
getting absorbed improperly through like fetal membranes. That's like completely nonsense. Like
What the fuck?
it doesn't. Yeah, people like white people love to say that the diseases they've gotten from fucking the fact that like the air in their house is 97% CO2 by
Yeah.
volume. And like because they've decided to run an entire country by just putting fucking trucking yards everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
There has to be a finger to point at, right? Like, it can't be
Yeah,
the
yeah, no, it
environment
can't
or
be
your
the air
bad
quality, right?
genes, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
your genes
Also,
are
I should point. I should make this clear. By the way, when I say that like autism is not sorry. When I say that asthma specifically is when I'm talking about the bad air, I'm specifically talking about asthma. I'm not talking about autism with that. That is not what causes autism or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it's autism is just a
I
thing
got
you're
what
born
you
with.
mean. I got what you mean.
Yeah,
But good clarification.
and it's cool. And also, fuck autism speaks.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to put that on the record. That's what I mean. I'm not saying that trucks cause autism. They don't. Like, yeah.
No,
but
yeah.
yeah. So okay, but there's a lot of like incredibly weird, racial, very dumb, anti-scientific panic about it. It's possible that there exists a group. So originally it was about like anyone who eats this will have these symptoms, right? And then over time, the argument got sort of fizzed down to there might be a group of people who in the populate, like a small group of people who are like specifically sensitive to it. And that's probably plausible. Like there's some experimental evidence that shows that there could be a group of people for whom they're more sensitive to it than a regular person. And
That's
I don't
fair.
know, sure, people
People
have
are-
allergies, like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
People are allergic to peanuts and soy and a bunch of other
yeah,
fucking
like
things.
it's not like
I
yeah,
don't know.
it's not a thing to sort of like yeah, I don't know. Like if you're a person who gets allergy reactions to shit, like yeah, that's allergies, right? But like it's not the sort of like I don't know. The panic about it is utterly unjustified. There may be a group of people who it has some effect on because they're allergic to it or whatever. But
Yeah, imagine demonizing peanuts because there's a group of people that can't eat peanuts.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
like-
That's why? Like, why would you ever do that?
to be fair, I am okay with demonizing peanuts specifically if it gets people to stop fucking worshipping that bastard Jimmy Carter, who was a neoliberal ghoul, and his reputation has been fucking just like his reputation has been saved entirely by the fact that every single person who came after him was an utterly deranged war criminal, and his war crime was like
Wait, what do peanuts have to
suppressing
do with it?
well, he was a peanut farmer.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. This is the deep Jimmy Carter lore.
Yes.
For the
I'm
real
on
Jimmy heads
track
out there.
now. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. But all right. So going back, I think so. This was a kind of thing that like, people avoiding MSG is had just kind of been like a part of daily life. Like it was just like a thing that existed in the world. But it wasn't like at a certain point, it became the kind of thing that people would talk about like in conversation, and like you could just get people to do anti-MSG rants, but it wasn't really a sort of like mainstream political issue in the way that it had been like in like 1969, where there's the other thing that happened is in the 90s the FDA did a study about it. And the FDA was like, it's fine. Like,
Right.
don't eat 300 grams of it at one time. Like, but like, as long as you're not sitting there like eating MSG raw out of the fucking like.
They would say the
tin.
same thing about like high fructose corn syrup. You know what I mean?
Why?
Like,
Yeah,
that's
and like
everything.
by volume, high fructose corn syrup has killed way more people than
Exactly,
MSG.
that's what I was thinking,
Also,
yeah.
now there's like a whole thing about like MSG causing obesity, which I don't know if that's true or not. I think their studies are fucking whack, but it might cause obesity like every other food that the U.S. has made in the last 20 years.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and one day we will do a episode about like the politics of anti-fatness because it's fucked. But
yes,
today we're doing this episode, and okay, so you know, every once in a while, the way this stuff sort of works, every once in a while there would be a sort of like a mainstream like Asian American figure who would talk about it. So, for example, there's a Korean chef named David Chang who talks about it. And he did some, like, he gave speeches about it and the sort of demonization of it. But it didn't really get back to mainstream discourse until 2020 when our good friends Ajinomoto, the people who made the stuff in the first place, hired a bunch of Asian American like celebrities to do a pro MSG campaign. So they hired Eddie Huang, who's like a writer and chef, who's like probably most famous for like being the guy who wrote Fresh Off the Boat. And so that they have this whole sort of campaign, and this like takes off, right? Like this is one of those things that was like completely forgotten that happened in 2020 that no one now remembers because this happens like before COVID, like before we had the lockdowns and before.
I mean, I'll be honest, it escapes my memory.
Oh, I have no memory of this happening either, but apparently it did. I don't know. I think this was still while the election was still going on. So. Yeah, I paid no attention to this.
Wasn't the best time to do that.
Yeah, 2020, the year everything happened.
Yeah.
But okay, so you know this campaign like takes off. Like Eddie Huang's on NBC and they do like the talk show circuit with Jenny Mai advocating for like so their whole thing is that they wanted to remove Chinese restaurant syndrome from the dictionary. And they had this whole like hashtag redefine CRS, is like the redefine Chinese restaurant syndrome. And this is like a whole thing. And, you know, and there's something, okay, but this was one of the things that sort of drew me to the story. Because if you look at the press for this, right, it's like activists pressure Merriam-Webster. And like, that's kind of true. Like, it superficially, it is kind of what happened. And like, yeah, I'm glad the dictionary changed the entry to say like, this is like outdated and kind of bullshit. But like, okay, think about what actually happened here, right? A company that makes a product hired a bunch of sort of Asian American like big celebrity people to do a marketing campaign for them in the name of anti-racism. Which, like, yes, I am glad we are addressing the racism around MSG. However, I feel like it's a really sort of like it's a really literal example of the kind of like vapidity and listlessness of like Asian American identity and culture and politics, like pre-COVID. Yeah. Like this is happening like early January, right? So COVID is still sort of like some disease in China. Like we haven't hit full racism yet. And again, like this is not like an activist campaign. You know, I mean, like activists get on board with it, I guess. But like activism is doing an ad campaign for a company that makes salt.
Right. Yeah. It's not exactly grassroots organizing.
Yeah. And you know, okay, and it works, right? Like this is a thing that like the Asian American community like picks up, right? I mean, sort of. I don't know. I don't remember it, but when I looking back on the articles and the hashtags and stuff, it's like, wow, they got lots of tweets. But you know, I think the reason that this worked is because of the sort of self-conception of like Asian Americanness as this like backstory of like immigrants stepping off the boat and they start a restaurant and then your kids get an education so they enter the professional class. And like there isn't like, I don't know, like this is literally like part of the reason I was doing this also is like this is literally what happened to my family. Like they showed up from Taiwan, they worked in a restaurant, then they opened a restaurant, and then like I don't know, like every successive generation, well, okay, I was gonna say every successive generation got more like professionally, but like I have a bunch of doctors and everything, but then they also produce me, who's a podcaster. So I'm defying Asian American stereotypes by being more dipshit than my parents. But you know, like this has become like this single sort of cultural narrative of like what it is to be an Asian American, right? Like you see this in every single story that Asian American media like has produced in the last like 10 years. It has one plot, right? There's a family in the US. They're trying to fit in. They almost always have some kind of small business. And then something appears that challenges their ability to like assimilate into American society. This is, and then, you know, they deal with it and that's the end, right? This is the plot of Crazy Rich Asians. It's the plot of Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's the plot of Fresh Off the Boat. It's the plot of the fucking CW Kung Fu show. It is the plot, like literally everything that like we produce has one plot and it's this.
Yeah.
And the reason why is the reason why this is the only sort of like piece of media that the sort of Asian American cultural class has been able to produce. This is the reason why all of the fucking activism and ad campaigns are just like fucking, we got hired by a company and we're going to talk about why racism is bad so that this company can sell more product. Like, the reason it's this is because this is an incredibly marketable self-conception of Asian Americanness. Like, the conception of it as being restaurant owners is there because it's a form of culture that can be sold to white people, right?
Yeah.
It's, hey, look, we're different. We eat wacky food, but you can eat it too. And ultimately, we're all in this for capitalism and the patriarchal family, like just like you are. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. And that really depresses me because this is a moment that demands something else, and I think that's why that's why the sort of mainstream like Asian American reaction to like there was another Asian woman like who got stabbed to death like 2 weeks ago, and there was like fucking no coverage of it. Like nobody gave a shit. It's just gotten to the point where like this happens, like 6 people report on it, and then everyone just sort of moves on to their life.
And it goes away.
Yeah, and I think the reason why the sort of like Stop Asian Hate shit has gotten to it's gone through the sign cycle where everyone like had the signs up and then they took them down,
right?
And so I think the reason why it turned into this sort of like the organizing turned into this like incredibly vapid like put a sign in your store, like tweet a hashtag stuff, like is because of this. Is because what it means to be sort of Asian American has been hollowed out and out and sold for just decades and decades and decades. And now, like in a time when it's actually sort of like, when it's really in danger and is called to action, it hasn't been able to do much.
Right.
And
well, yeah, pointing out the film and TV thing is really important because, I mean, so many marginalized communities have this experience, but I think China, like Asian culture in particular, I think it really, people, if they're ignorant and they just see what's depicted on media, they don't see them as 3-dimensional beings. You know what I mean? What they have is like a very hollow version of a human. And so I don't know, it kind of upsets me because I feel like media is the first thing people learn things from, whether it's film or TV or whatever, but yeah. Well,
and also I think it's part of the reason why, like, the way that those depictions sort of obscure class, where because in these things, right? Like a lot of these families are poor, but they're still business owners, right?
Right. And
that's like if you're a poor American, it's because you're a business owner. You're like a sort of struggling like American entrepreneur, and this obscures the fact that there is a massive Asian American just underclass people who are delivery drivers or work in warehouses or. I mean, like there are groups of people who like come to the U.S. from China who, like live in like basically completely isolated communities in parts of Chinatown where they're only speaking Chinese and they just fucking like they're the people who have to do a bunch of like warehouse shit and then they leave and that's it, right? Like and these people, this shit you never actually get any kind of sort of class analysis because the way that media thinks about Asian Americans is like they're either one of 3 things. They're a business owner, they're like a rich professional, so they're like a doctor or something, or they're like the fucking people on Bling where they're just like super rich assholes.
Right.
And that allows, I think, like a specific kind of anti-Asian politics to work that like Asian people are seen as sort of like perpetual like foreign elite. And it's like, no, I don't know. Like it's just not, it's not true. And it means that when you get like Asian American political movements, like the sort of Stop Anti-Asian Hate thing, right? Like you have like the guy who founded DoorDash, right? Is like, is an Asian, is like a Chinese American guy, right? He's like he's a tech billionaire. He used to be like an eBay. And like, you would have these Stop Asian Hate events where like this fucking guy is on there, like is up on the stage talking about anti-Asian hate. And it's like, okay, this guy has like brutally and horribly exploited like literally millions of Asian Americans, but there's never going to be a reckoning with that because
he's successful and he's capitalist, like he's achieved the capitalist dream or whatever the shit.
Yep. And because Asian American identity has been flattened in this way, like those people are just completely invisible, and it sucks, and I hate it, and
yeah. it's just, I don't know. There's nothing good I can, like, anything I can say to make anything better, but I think it's just, I don't know. Maybe we can do an episode one day about like film and TV and stuff, because I think it really starts there. Unfortunately, like it's silly, but people that don't know a Chinese person will see a Chinese person on their TV and be like, that's the only Chinese person I've ever seen in my life, and I'm going to make assumptions about the whole race now. But
one day I'm going to do we're going to do an episode that's entirely me shitting on Jackie Chan. People are going to get really mad at me, but fuck that guy.
That's a hot take.
He started his career as a fucking scab. That was literally his first thing, was he was a scab. And he's a fucking homophobic piece of shit. Fuck him. Done irreparable damage to
I'm
Asian
down
America.
for this episode. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. That will be a subsequent. We are now to the part of the episode where we are teasing you with subsequent episodes.
Yes.
But yeah.
I don't know. It is a little bit upsetting how these really important movements are just like they plateau and they become like this vapid thing, like you're saying. Like, I think that gives people such an easy out of like quote unquote being an ally or supporting, because they think they're doing something by like holding up a sign or something without really internalizing or spreading the awareness that is necessary. And I don't know.
I guess the thing I want to end on also is me being pissed off at a bunch of Asian American kids in the 60s. So one of the stories you will hear a lot if you're studying Asian American politics is the story that like the term Asian American was invented by these like activists who actually were like doing a bunch of stuff in 1968. Who were these like these radical student activists, and like that's true. But the thing you have to understand about those people is that all of those people were like all of those people were basically like were third worldists, and part of the reason this whole politics collapses, part of what happened was like part of the demands of these students in 1968 of these sort of like radical student groups, like, you know, they're formed to sort of like support the sort of like black radical student groups and to like advocate for themselves, but like one of their big demands was they wanted cultural studies departments in American universities, and they got them. But you know, okay, so what are those cultural studies like departments? They basically just became these giant traps for radicals, where instead of like overthrowing the government, you like come do this cushy job in academia. Right. And like all of the sort of like old radicals like from that era either like got regular jobs or became academics, right? And the other thing that happened with this politics that was the reason why it was completely unsustainable was that, and this has been a sort of a problem with the Asian American identity, right? Is that, okay, like what the fuck is an Asian American, right? It's like anyone from like, I don't know, like it's anyone from like the edge of the Pacific to like, I don't know, like how far like what's it called? Like how far west does that go the other direction? Like who knows? Right. It's like, it's incoherent. Is the
swath of
all like
of that,
I mean, this is like billions and billions and billions of people with completely unrelated cultures and languages and stuff like that. And the reason they were able to do this, right, was because they were mirroring their movement off of like the third world, right? But the problem that they ran into, and this was the problem with all the third world movements, was that, okay, so the third world movement, like as a thing, was based on a bunch of different nationalist movements, right? Like it was based on that there was going to be this like alliance between like the sort of like the rising socialist powers in Africa and the rising socialist powers in East Asia, and they were going to sort of like ally with like the rising sort of like the rising sort of like minorities gaining power in the US. But okay, if you look at those nationalisms, right, you have Chinese nationalism, Cambodian nationalism, and Vietnamese nationalism all colliding with each other. And, you know, if it turns out like what happens if your movement is based on sort of like the unity of a bunch of nationalist movements and they go to war with each other? And, you know, what happened was when Vietnam invades Cambodia and Vietnam invades Cambodia and then China invades Vietnam in 1979, right? That entire politics is just fucked, because what are you supposed to do? Like, whose side are you supposed to take here, right? Like, you can do the, you know, like if you're gonna be like a Marxist Leninist, like probably the correct line is support Vietnam, right? Right. But that's a mess, because you know how many people are Maoists, right? Yeah. And if you're a Maoist and your fucking people just invaded Vietnam, like, you know, what are you supposed to do, right? And there were earlier tensions with this too, where like like China was backing like a really shitty faction in Angola who ended up being backed by the US and like South Africa. And that caused a whole bunch of tensions between the sort of Chinese Maoists and a bunch of the sort of black radical groups, because they were like, why the fuck are you guys backing these people in Angola? But you know, and this whole thing became a problem because all of these nationalisms are competing nationalisms, right? There was never going to be one unified third world. It was always going to end with a bunch of nationalists fucking fighting each other. And when that happens, the Asian American movement, such as it was, just fucking died. And, you know, like as a radical movement, it was just over. And so, you know, I think the lesson that I would take out of this is just that, like, do not build your movement based off of someone else's nationalism, because those people are going to do things because they're nationalists that are just fucked, right? They're going to invade Vietnam, like the Cambodians are going to invade Vietnam, and then Vietnam's going to, like, you know, like are arguably justifiably because they've been getting attacked and because they're fighting the Khmer Rouge, but like, you know, these people are all going to go to war with each other, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're going to be stuck in the situation where, like, you're being forced to choose sides between like the Derg and the Marxist government in Somalia because they've randomly gone to war with each other. So don't do this. This has been my rant that I wanted to do about this, because yeah.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad that I was here for it too, because I don't know, it's good to know this stuff, and I get to learn by listening to you tell me. And yeah, I appreciate all the research that you did.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess this has been It Can Happen Here.
Episode?
Yeah, that's the episode. You can find us at Happen Here Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at itmechr3. Yeah.
I'm at ShiroHero666 on Twitter, and then on Instagram, just take out the 666s. But maybe I should add them, because who cares? Anyway, thanks. Bye.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to, wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Time for a sofa upgrade? Introducing Anabe Sofas, where designer style meets budget-friendly prices. Anabay brings you the ultimate in furniture innovation with a modular design that allows you to rearrange your space effortlessly. Perfect for both small and large spaces, Anabay is the only machine washable sofa inside and out. Say goodbye to stains and messes with liquid and stain-resistant fabrics that make cleaning easy. Liquid simply slide right off. Designed for custom comfort, our high-resilience foam lets you choose between a sink-in feel or a supportive memory foam blend. Plus, our pet-friendly, stain-resistant fabrics ensure your sofa stays beautiful for years. Don't compromise quality for price. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your living space today. Sofas start at just $699 with no risk returns and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get up to 60% off plus free shipping and free returns. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
This is It Could Happen Here. My name is Jake Hanrahan. I'm a journalist and documentary filmmaker. Today you're going to hear me reporting from an undisclosed location in Europe where I met with anti-Putin Russian partisans. So right now I'm heading into the forest somewhere on the edge of Europe. There's snow absolutely everywhere. It's pitch black and it's very, very cold. I'm headed into the forest to meet with anti-government Russian partisans. They've been launching attacks inside Russia against Kremlin infrastructure. They've been blowing up railway tracks and attacking military recruitment centers because they want to disrupt the continued Russian invasion of Ukraine. These partisan attacks have been taking place all across Russia, but obviously over there's a complete media blackout on this situation. So this group have come over and agreed to meet with me to tell me what's actually happening and to let people know that it's not everybody there that supports this, and some people are even taking up arms, taking massive risks to try and stop what Putin is up to. When Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, 2022, the Ukrainian people bravely mobilized to fight back against Putin's attack on their country. Russia's so-called three-day special operation has turned into a grueling year-long battle where the Ukrainian resistance has been highly effective. Despite this chaos, it seems many people in Russia have come out in favor of this brutal war. Even now, with over 40,000 people killed and over 14 million displaced, there's still large-scale support for Putin's attacks on Ukraine. This much is fact. The idea that every Russian is in favor of the war is not. Russia is a huge place with a population of over 140 million. Many people there do not support Putin or his war. Some have even taken the risk to fight back. As I mentioned, there's a quiet but highly effective network of anti-Putin partisans that are fighting from within. They're doing this by blowing up military railways, sabotaging Kremlin cell towers, and burning down war recruitment centers. All this in an effort to help Ukrainians from afar. If caught by the Russian security forces, they face torture and life in prison. Despite the risks, in the last 12 months, there have been more than 80 confirmed attacks against the government inside Russia. The attacks have taken place all across the country as well, from Moscow in the west to Vladivostok in the far east. There are dozens of different partisan cells and lone wolves. As is with real life, the partisans have varying different political ideologies from far left to far right. For the moment though, they all share information with each other, recognizing their common enemy in Putin. One of the most organized groups is made up of militant anarchists. They're known as the Anarcho-Communist Combat Organization, more commonly referred to by their Russian abbreviation, BOAK. It's two fighters from BOAK who I'd arranged to meet in a Russia-bordering forest of Eastern Europe. We'd spoken weeks before via encrypted email. They told me which country to fly to and then sent me coordinates of where to meet them within a specific window of time. I drove as far as I could, abandoned the car, and took off into the forest. Eventually, a red torchlight emerged through the trees, cutting the silhouette of two figures. As the two approached, it was clear it was the BOAK fighters. They were both dressed head to toe in black and were both wearing balaclavas. We confirmed things, shook hands, and set off to find a spot for the interview. They led me through an underground tunnel to an area they felt comfortable with.
Just a moment. It sounds like...
To protect the identity of the Russian partisans, we've scrambled their voice. That voice you just heard, that's Ulya, she's a female, and the other fighter, the voice you'll hear, that's Jura, he's a male. Can you explain the actions? Like, what are the main things you've been doing to disrupt Putin's invasion?
We disassembled railways, which leads to the artillery warehouse in the Moscow region. It delayed supplies to the front, so it gave to the Ukrainian people more time to prepare for the counterattack in Russia.
Derailing trains in Russia is something the partisans specialize in. They've managed to knock several Kremlin cargo trains off their tracks. Trains that were destined to deliver weapons to Russian soldiers as they continued to invade Ukraine. We'll probably never know how helpful this was for Ukrainians, but every second counts when battling for frontline positions in war. For example, if Russian soldiers were left waiting for a resupply, which was delayed because of partisan attacks, they might then be overrun by Ukrainians. This would definitely be an effective blow for the partisans. I asked the Boak fighters why they felt the need to form such an organization.
We see that we need to create a partisan organization because in Russia the state operation is very hard, so you can't use some legal methods to do some step-by-step changes. Even if you do some so-called legal actions, anyway you'll go to the jail. We are attacking the state to make it weaker.
To show people that we can do it. We as people
of Russia, people of all the world, we have this power in our hands, and
it is possible.
Yeah, them, the state, they are small, and we are. There's a lot of us. And the second direction which we are developed since then is a coordination of such kind of attack, partisan attacks, all over Russia. Recently, we published, I think, maybe even more than 10 attacks from many different regions. We help small partisan cells to find out how to make attacks, help them with supplies, to help such small partisan groups.
It's increasing.
It's increasing, yeah. And they making more and more serious attacks. For example, not a long time ago, they bombed some kind of military railroad near the Ukrainian border. So our power is not in that one small group can do, but that we have a lot of small groups, and all together we can change things.
So you guys have been around before the Ukraine war started, or at least since the invasion started this year. But that's when you've got a lot more known, I think, online. We're seeing that you guys are actually doing attacks inside Russia and in Belarus. Very dangerous thing to do. What is it that, spurred you guys on? Why are you doing this? Why are you taking such a risk to basically attack Putin in his own country?
Because it's not his country, it's our country. We can't do nothing, we can't do legal things, and these partisan attacks can make military machine of Russian state. We cut the supply lines, we attack the military recruitment centers, so the army becomes weaker, and as it was very often in Russia and many other states' history, when the state lose war, there is the window of possibilities opens for the people of this country.
Whilst Boak are pragmatic, focused currently on the pressing issue of Putin's war on Ukraine, they're also looking to carve out a space for themselves in what they believe will be a wild post-Putin Russia. When Putin dies, there will be a vacuum where many other groups feel the same. Boak, in their minds, are setting down foundations already. For now, though, they concentrate on assisting the Ukrainians. And in terms of solidarity with Ukraine, are you doing this to help the Ukrainians as well, or just for yourselves? Are you in contact with Ukrainians, or is this just a movement you guys are doing yourselves?
Of course, we had contacts. We can't, of course, say what exactly contacts. Yes, but yes, we have contacts with different and not only his organization in all ex-USSR
and other countries as well.
Also, yeah.
As well, we try to provide information for those other groups which don't yet know how to do things and don't yet have funds enough for supplies, because even gasoline costs money and they don't have money. And as well, near the start of war, our group organized a few attacks on the mobile cell towers near Ukraine border.
as we've seen from the Telegram channels, the kind of underground, there's definitely a lot of attacks, as you've said, as you've been doing. How big is your organization? Because it's hard to tell. How prevalent are these attacks inside Russia?
So there is about 2 or 3 thousands affinity groups, and everyone has a different number of members. And what about geography? As you know, Partisans X from the Kaliningrad, west of Russia, to the Vladivostok, which is far east of Russia.
Almost Russia, yeah.
Specifically being anarchists, but being partisans is extremely, extremely dangerous inside Russia. You're taking a massive risk doing this kind of stuff. Some people are going to see this and go like, why? Why would you take that risk?
If we won't take those risks now, we won't have future at all.
Are you not worried? You're not scared of getting caught?
Of course we are. We're not stupid enough to not be.
But it's much more scary to know that you had chance to change something and you didn't. Our people killing people of Ukraine and making the world worse and worse with every day, with dangers of nuclear war and so on. Because if we do it now, maybe we will not have the future at all, not only in Russia but all over the world.
People on the internet, they'll see what you guys are doing and they say, oh, you guys are CIA operatives and stuff like this, particularly like Westerners that actually support Putin. Now, you know what it's like living there under Putin. How would you address that? What would you say to those kind of accusations?
I think if we would be CIA, we would act more effectively, but we act with those forces, with those resources which we have. We're trying to increase them, but we understand that it's time, it's a process from zero partisan attacks to the full partisan war. So if we were CIA, we had a lot. We would have a lot more resources now.
Yeah, we have homemade bombs or anything we can get our hands on.
Or even speaking about resources which we used when we disassembled railways, we used simple instruments which we could be bought in
hardware store. We are showing people that they can just go to the store and buy those tools and do it themselves. It's not just us doing some stuff with some specific materials you can only get in the dark net.
Now, let's be honest, it's likely the CIA are up to something in Russia, considering their past history. But personally, I believe Boak when they say they're nothing to do with that. I think it would be pretty unlikely that the CIA would help an anarcho-communist group when there are ultra-nationalist groups doing similar things. How do you get the information? Like, how do you know which railway to blow up?
We used Wikimapia, a service which provides
description for each object
on the map, and everyone can contribute to it. So you just open it and you find, okay, military object is here, it's doing something like that, there is its photos, and people who did it, they didn't do it for us, they just did it because
you want to share this information.
And you just can take it and use it.
So they use Wikimapia to help plot their attacks. This I found quite funny. It's like the modern version of guerrillas gathering intel from locals about the enemy, only the locals in this case don't even know they're doing it. Scouting is also a big part of their sabotage preparations.
But of course, we need to...
a lot of scouting.
Yeah.
Scouting?
Yeah.
Like you check out the place?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Many times before the attack.
I know that anarchists, specifically in Russia, have been tortured quite a lot if they're captured for anything. What do you think would happen to you guys if you got caught?
For sure, we're gonna be tortured as well.
If we will if we will live enough, because we are not planning to
get caught empty-handed.
Yeah. We don't give any information on our comrades, and when you are tortured, it's hard to say when you would or would not you break.
You never know how you react to torture.
So it's better to prevent this by dying fighting.
Does that mean do you have firearms?
If you want to do a revolution, you can do it without firearms.
Like why are you doing this? Why are you giving us the interview? Why do you want this information to get out there?
We think that it's important that people see us not as some internet warriors. We want people to hear our voices and to hear what we have to say.
We don't want people to think that we are some shady organization, but we want them to see that we are real people just like them.
Yeah.
And just like us, they can do things that we do.
A lot of it is online, but there's definitely a perception that all Russians agree with the invasion, the destruction of Ukraine, what Putin wants to do. Obviously, people like you very clearly, a small but effective resistance against Putin's policies. What do you think about that? How would you respond to that? Is it in the country, are more people against it than it would seem, or what?
There are a lot more people against it than it seems, because propaganda shows only people who agree with Putin, and many people don't agree, and many people just silent because they're afraid to lose their jobs.
If you will beat a dog every day, then some day it will think that I live like that, it's normal. Yeah. So as we see, a lot of people in Russia are also victims of the Putin's regime.
At the moment, they just don't think that if they speak up, they'll change anything. I think our main message is that people shouldn't just sit and wait that someone else is gonna do anything for them. They should take their lives in their own hands.
As we often repeat, if not we, then who? If not now, then when?
Thank you very much. Good luck with everything.
It's very good.
Thank you so much. With that, the two partisans from Boak vanished into the forest. As Russia's war on Ukraine approaches its 12th month, Russian partisans like the ones I spoke to are continuing to disrupt Putin's war effort from within. Organisations like Boak are fighting an uphill battle, but still their attacks have definitely been effective. As we said, several military trains have been derailed and word of the partisan underground is spreading. Whilst there's next to no Russian state media coverage on this, the Russian government is clearly aware of it. Security around Russian train tracks has been tightened, and a Russian court has fined the Telegram app for allowing partisan networks to share information there. Not to mention the uptick in unexplained fires breaking out across the country. Even though Putin's government acts like they can't see them, they know the partisans are there. If you want to watch the extended documentary version of this reporting, go to youtube.com/popularfront and look for the documentary Russia's Anti-Putin Underground. Music in this episode of It Could Happen Here was by Sam Black. See his music at samblackpf.com. Reporting, production, editing was by me. You can follow me at Jake_Hanrahan, HANRAHAN. Please do check out my platform, Independent Grassroots Conflict Reporting, www.popularfront.co.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. 100. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Time for a sofa upgrade? Introducing Anabay Sofas, where designer style meets budget-friendly prices. Anabay brings you the ultimate in furniture innovation with a modular design that allows you to rearrange your space effortlessly. Perfect for both small and large spaces, Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa inside and out. Say goodbye to stains and messes with liquid and stain-resistant fabrics that make cleaning easy. Liquid simply slide right off. Designed for custom comfort, our high-resilience foam lets you choose between a sink-in feel or a supportive memory foam blend. Plus, our pet-friendly, stain-resistant fabrics ensure your sofa stays beautiful for years. Don't compromise quality for price. Visit washablesofas.com to upgrade your living space today. Sofas start at just $699 with no risk returns and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get up to 60% off plus free shipping and free returns. Shop now at washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
Welcome back to It Could Happen Here, a podcast that is today about it happening here, or more particularly in Atlanta. So it's here if you happen to live in Atlanta, Georgia. Otherwise, it is still happening there. And I don't actually know much about this because, like the rest of you, I have been watching from the sidelines since a forest defender was killed by the Georgia State Police. But someone who has been in Atlanta for most of the last week is Garrison Davis. Garrison!
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
It's been a long week.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You had just gotten back from CES when all this happened and booked the next flight and flew out. And we're on the ground during some of the immediate protests that followed news about the death. Do you want to just kind of take it from here?
Yeah, so we're going to be putting together kind of a more in-depth thing similar to my on the ground at Defend the Atlanta Forest episodes from last May. That's going to come out, but it'll take a little bit because I'm doing a lot of interviews, doing a lot of on the ground stuff here.
Yeah.
But this is important enough that I feel like it was worth mentioning something a bit sooner, which is why we're recording here today, just to kind of give a 101 on what's been going on ever since Wednesday. So Wednesday, January 18th, there was a raid on the Weelaunee Forest, or the South River Forest in Atlanta, where people have been currently staying in encampments for the past year and a half in opposition of this upcoming proposed police training facility to be built on this same land. So Wednesday morning, there was this raid. There's a few things different about this raid. One, it seemed to be in some ways kind of led by the Georgia State Patrol. This is a state-run police that has not been in this forest before. Other raids have been coordinated between DeKalb County Police and Atlanta Police. So the SWAT team was unfamiliar with the forest. They had not been in there before. There was other police on site. This was an interagency thing. It does seem like there was Atlanta police here as well. But this started at around 8 a.m. and then at around 9 a.m. we got word that a forest defender was shot and killed by, it seems like, a state patrol officer that they are not releasing the name of. Nor are they releasing the name of one other officer who was injured, and Georgia State Patrol claims that they were shot during this raid as well. Police
by
say
the decedent.
Yeah. Yes, police claim that they were shot by the person that the Georgia State Patrol killed. There's very little information about this.
No body cameras.
They have said that there's no body cam, which does seem consistent because Georgia State Patrol are not required to wear body cam. So that obviously hit a lot of people pretty hard because this is, to our knowledge, the first environmentalist protester to be killed by police. it's the first fatality that we've had in this movement here in Atlanta.
And for the record, it is still deeply unclear what happened. It's certainly not impossible that this person fired first on the police officer, but it's also incredibly important to note that there is no evidence of this that's been presented. The only evidence that the police have presented is a photo of a pistol on the ground, and then they've made the very weaselly worded claim that ballistics testing has shown that the bullet that struck the officer was consistent with the gun that they're saying the individual they killed had.
And
now,
all that means is that it was 9mm.
That it was the same caliber, right? A caliber for which there are tens of millions of guns in this country. Most ballistic science is, in terms of like identifying bullets to guns, is actually nonsense. There have been massive lawsuits about this. The FBI has this is a bigger topic than we can get into today, but it's very shady. And all that they actually said is the cop was shot with a 9mm, and hey, look, we found a 9mm. Not interestingly enough, we have confirmed that this gun was fired.
Correct.
So very anyway.
So
no one knows what's happened.
It's shady. I mean, so I got here like less than 24 hours later. A lot of people on the ground have been kind of sharing their memories of the person that was killed. So the person was named, their forest name was Tortuguita, which means little turtle. Their name that has been released is Manuel. I'm gonna call them Tortuguita or Tort.
Sure.
There's been people have, spent a lot of the past few days talking about Tort, remembering Tort. The types of things that they advocated for, the types of things that they would talk about. So we'll get into some of the more kind of specifics of that later.
But yeah, a number of other journalists have talked about their conversations with Tort, including the fact that they evinced a pretty principled and extensive commitment to nonviolence. At least in interviews. This is something they had been quoted on by other journalists a number of times.
And this is something I've heard a lot of people bring up is that Tort was a believer in nonviolence and would talk about and advocate that. The other kind of angle to this, and I'm not taking a position one way or another here, but this is something that I think is important to mention, is that I also don't want to remove the agency of a person if they did decide to do if they did decide to do this, because the other thing I've heard a lot about Tort is that they always made thoughtful decisions, meaning that they put thought into everything they did. They acted strategically. They did not put people in unnecessary danger. They would not do something if they thought it would endanger other people. They always acted with thought, and that could include if you feel like your life is under immediate threat. What actually happened Wednesday morning, we will probably never know. We will never know the exact series of events.
Yeah.
And in some ways, like we should respect Tort either way, because they made a decision that they thought that was right in the moment, or they were just flat out murdered by police. So that's kind of the gist of what happened Wednesday morning. Throughout the rest of the day, their police continued their raid on the forest. The last tree sitter was eventually taken down like 20 hours later after the raid. Someone was stuck up in a tree for over 20 hours, no food or water, police agitating them the entire time. And many, all other people arrested, I think a total around 7, got charged with domestic terrorism, among other charges. So that's pretty significant. That is people that, and we will circle back to this point a little bit later. So that is what happened on Wednesday. The first few hours after the shooting, people were unsure of who actually got killed. It was hard to say. Other forest defenders who were in the area did report from that what they heard. There was a pretty quick single firing of guns, multiple guns going off in a pretty quick succession. There was no like one shot And then seconds later, a bunch of other shots. It was all kind of one event. This is reports from people on the ground. This is what they've said. A lot of people speculate that this could have been friendly fire if this other patrol officer was got shot. They went to the hospital, so
it does appear that a police officer got a bullet inside of them.
Yes,
but obviously there's a number of ways in which that could have occurred, and I don't find it. I don't think it's conspiratorial at all to say they have not presented evidence. It is certainly possible that a bunch of cops wandering through the forest, somebody would have a negligent discharge. Somebody would just pant. There's enough. And again, as you've stated, we probably will never know precisely what happened.
Yeah, and that's the feeling on the ground. A lot of people coming to terms with the fact that we will never know. A lot of people, thinking that it, very likely chance it was friendly fire. Other people, trying to emphasize the fact that, we will never know. We cannot say one way or another, but it's also important not to minimize someone's autonomy, especially since they're no longer around to advocate for themselves or their actions. Let's have an ad break, and then we'll kind of continue on to what happened in the days after.
We're back. Garrison, please continue to take it away.
So the day of the shooting, there was a vigil. Before we found out who it was, there was a vigil set up at Little Five Points in Atlanta, and then the next 2 days there was a vigil space created at Entrenchment Creek Park or Wolani People's Park. This is an area of the forest that's on like the eastern side, and this is the section that is currently being sought as a place to expand Blackhall movie studios. So this is separate from the actual Cop City element of this, but it's still part of the Defend the Atlanta Forest side of this, because this is all the same forest. They're just kind of split down the middle by this power line cut. So this section of the park is on a section of land that's contestedly owned by Ryan Millsap, the guy who runs Blackhall Studios. I first arrived at Wolani People's Park on Friday for the more public facing vigil, and I just kind of I want to talk a bit about the park, because this is such a solid encapsulation of what's changed since last time I've been in Atlanta. So last time I was in Atlanta, there was the Muskogee Creek people were traveling from, I believe, Oklahoma to Atlanta. What is now Atlanta? What used to be Muskogee land? And they were like giving talks and presentations about the forest inside the section of forest that the Defend the Atlanta Forest stuff is about. And I went to one of those events at Entrenchment Creek Park. It was green, trees all around. There was a nice gazebo. There was a piano inside the gazebo. People handing out food. A little like kitchen was set up. Pretty picturesque. It was pretty great. So then when I pulled up to this same spot a few days ago, it was like apocalyptic. The gazebo has been completely torn down and is laying in shambles in the front of the parking lot, like for everyone to see. The destroyed remains, all of the concrete sidewalks and stuff have all been torn up and is just scattered everywhere. It's just a massive mud pit. It's such a different place. And when you get there for a vigil, the mood's not cheery, obviously. There was people, sharing stories of Tort, singing songs, and, building this almost like a vigil shrine. So that was like the first big thing Friday night. So a lot of people talked about their memories of Tort and, the different things they contributed to, not just the Defend the Atlanta Forest stuff, but stuff across the entire South. They did mutual aid work and stuff to secure housing for people in Florida. They helped defend drag shows in Tennessee. They did stuff all across the South, and they had allies and accomplices from across the South, talking about how great Tort was to work with and the types of solidarity that Tort would show to many, many different people. So that was Friday, and everyone was kind of, you could kind of feel the almost calm before the storm. In some ways, people didn't really know what was going to happen in the coming days, but there was a sense of like eerie quietness. And then Saturday happens. Saturday, there is this protest planned meeting in Underground Atlanta, which is a spot in downtown Atlanta, kind of on the south side. I got there for this protest. There initially there was people from this like socialist organization called PSL. They tried to lead the march one way. The crowd rejected their authority and was like, "No, we're not going to go to the Federal District. We're not going to go to the CNN Center, which are places notorious for getting kettled at." And people autonomously redirected the crowd north towards and north is also just so happens to be the direction of the Atlanta Police Foundation headquarters, the pseudo-union lobbying group that is behind the big push for Cop City. But before this march started, there was similarly, people giving speeches about Tort, people not speeches, like people just sharing memories of Tort, so that Tort can like live on in some way, so people can know about them now that they're no longer around. People from a local medic collective talking about Tort's involvement in that and how much Tort cared about helping other people. So this march starts up. It was funny. There was a few blocks away from this march location, there just so happened to be like a single police car in the street, but like parked on the wrong side of the road. And this police car sees this march coming, and it's like kind of freaking out. It doesn't know what to do. It drives in reverse for like 2 blocks, trying to find a spot to turn around as the march is like increasingly getting closer. Like you could feel the anxiety of the cop inside this car. They do not want to get surrounded by a crowd. Eventually, they're able to back up enough to turn around, and they get out. They are zooming away. They do not want to be anywhere near this. And shortly after, people arrive at the Atlanta Police Foundation headquarters. Windows spontaneously shatter, as is expected. A few bank windows also get broken. Wells Fargo being one of them.
R.I.P.
Yes, R.I.P. bank windows. Wells Fargo being another one. Wells Fargo is a major contributor to the Atlanta Police Foundation. So this happens. 2 cop cars that are just blocks away, that are sitting completely empty, get their windows smashed. There's fireworks going off around the crowd. There's this one clip that I saw from some group that was live streaming. That there was a few officers like stationed beside the Atlanta Police Foundation, and as soon as they heard fireworks, they again similarly just like ran away as fast as they could. They were not equipped to deal with fireworks were the main thing that they seemed to be scared of. So two cop cars get their windows smashed. Fireworks going around. March continues, goes for about a few more blocks, and then Corkers notice police are starting to come. Police are approaching the crowd head on. Police start rushing towards the crowd. They tackle a few people holding a banner. I think people scatter. Most of the crowd gets away. Most of the crowd splits up into 2 groups. The largest chunk is able to move away from police presence. There's people chanting "Be water," all the stuff. So most people do successfully get away. The smaller section of people split off in another direction. Cops follow. They are able to tackle and arrest a few more people in this group. In the end, it looks like there was 6 people arrested. Most people got away. After all these arrests are happening, people start noticing something that in the background, a few blocks previous to where people were marching, there looks to be a glowing police car. So we look back, and sure enough, an Atlanta police car is up in flames, completely glowing, huge flames. So as that happens, more and more cops show up. This is where like the cops now are like taking over downtown. Cops with AR-15 or AR style rifles are going around starting to do patrols. So this is like the night is over at this point. Now it's time for like people to scatter and leave, which is what people did. The aftermath of this is super fascinating and unfortunate, if not unexpected. There's been very little statements about the police killing of Tortuguita, of an environmental activist, forest defender. Very, very, very little statements addressing this matter at all. A huge flood of statements, however, seeming to be extremely concerned that like a few windows were broken and that a cop car got torched. This is
terrorism.
And this is less than a week after Martin Luther King Day. This is the big quote was that the police chief a few hours later declared that breaking windows and starting fires is terrorism, which is a wild thing for a police chief to say as the mayor stands behind, nodding in agreement.
It's one of the most fascist things that has occurred in the United States.
You cannot understate the severity
lifetime.
The severity of this change in the types of framing by the state.
Yeah.
To describe civil disobedience, to describe property destruction, to describe vandalism as a form of domestic terrorism is appalling.
I mean, if this holds up, then in states where this is done, there is effectively no longer any right to protest.
Yeah, and I mean, and we'll get into some of the details of this in a bit, even in this episode. And I think the other side of this is that this is something that I've heard people talk about here on the ground, is that if breaking windows is terrorism, right? If the destruction of inanimate objects is terrorism, what exactly is destroying an entire forest? Like, this is like the juxtaposition that people are dealing with on the ground right now. So the result of this is that we got six people who were, to be clear, arrested completely at random. This was very clear. Police were tackling anyone they could get their hands on. They were not doing targeted arrests. They were not going after specific individuals who they suspected of like actually doing crimes. They were tackling random people, as is kind of usual for these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But they have gotten a series of ridiculous charges: riot, arson, interfering with government property, and also domestic terrorism. So this is domestic terrorism, not even for people that are like in the forest, just people protesting out on the street.
Mm-hmm. Out on the street when windows were broken.
When windows were broken. There's no evidence of this. The bail hearings were today, as of being recorded. This is Monday. But bail hearings were today. The judge for the hearings specifically said that these hearings are not to litigate the facts of the issue. What actually happened doesn't matter. There's obviously no evidence to support that any of the people arrested did any crimes. There's no evidence that shows that the specific people arrested did anything beyond marching in the street. And that does not matter. That simply does not matter. The brutality is the point in this case. Two people have had their bail set at $355,000 each. So that's over $700,000 for just two people's bail. The other four people arrested were deemed to be from out of state by the judge and then thus a flight risk. including people that are just like less than 90 minutes away in Tennessee. And again, this is like where people are born. There's this sense that like people no longer have freedom to choose where they live, that people like no longer have any freedom of movement, that they no longer have the autonomy to go to different places. You know, this is like in line with the outside agitator angle that's been being pushed by governments and media ever since, especially since 2020. This is in line with that sort of stuff. But because these people were deemed non-local or a flight risk, these people are not getting any bond at all. These people are going to be held in jail
indefinitely. It's indefinite detention. Yeah.
It could this could literally be years. The legal system is so slow, and like being held in prison or in jail for years with no evidence presented that you did literally anything wrong. I've talked with a lot of people from Solidarity Fund, which I guess I'll mention here at the end, and you know, just people around, like what they're, you know, people are getting arrested with no evidence and getting, you know, indefinite time in prison, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to be released. Like the obvious abuse of power by the state, the sheer audacity and you know, the extreme danger that if these are able to stick and hold is incredibly frightening for any kind of future.
It's meant to be
any future civil rights movement at all. Like in this,
you might say that it's the strategic use of terror in order to achieve a political end.
One might say that. And I mean, we're in Atlanta. The streets they're marching on, there's banners of Martin Luther King hanging above us. Like it's incredibly frustrating. The Solidarity Fund, which we interviewed on the show, literally days before the episode released, days before the killing of Tortuguita. But the Atlanta Solidarity Fund is providing both legal support and bail for people arrested for political actions. The previous amount needed to bail out people was over $100,000, which is a lot of money. And now just for two people, it's $700,000 more dollars. So the Atlanta Solidarity Fund desperately needs funds to continue supporting people and to continue resisting state repression. We'll talk about this more once I have my deep dive episodes out on this topic, but it's crucial that if anyone cares about people's right to protest, to people's you know, ability to resist state violence, then it's absolutely crucial that people support the Solidarity Fund right now. Just today, I went to another kind of vigil at Emory College here in Atlanta. More people were sharing stories of tort. One person was reading out a letter that they sent to their comrades in Italy who are setting up a vigil as well. There's been a good amount of international support. I've seen vigils from Germany, from Italy. There's been events, demos, rallies, direct actions, and vigils all across the United States about to defend the Atlanta forest and about the killing of Tortuguita. People here absolutely do appreciate the solidarity. And the other thing people are saying is that, I mean, all of these tactics are meant to scare people away from the idea of protesting. And people are still needed on the ground here. This fight is not over. This is not the end. You know, tactics may have to change, tactics may have to shift. People may have to approach things from you know, different angles, but it's not over. And there's people have said that there's still a need for, you know, for support roles for people on the ground, for people to be in Atlanta, because it's not done.
I mean, I think there's a lot of sentiment on the left that what's happening in the Atlanta Forest Defense is probably the most important radical action going on in the country right now. And I think there's a few reasons for that. Not just the fact that the forest that is going to be torn down for Cop City is a crucial part of the city of Atlanta's tree cover, and that all of this ties into both the impossibility of actually combating climate change under the present system and the complicity of the police in making it impossible to combat that, or even to mitigate it in many cases. But I think what you've gotten to is probably the most directly frightening thing about what's going on in Atlanta, and the thing that's most relevant to the future of any kind of resistance in this country, which is the gloves are coming off, right? This is not going to be the last time that state security forces use the fact that terrorism has a special place in American law, and that crimes that are deemed to be terrorism open up the ability of the government to act in ways that they normally are not supposed to be able to act. Like that is going to be, it's not going to be just forest defenders that gets used on. It's going to be anyone who ever carries out any kind of act of protest that has a chance of upsetting the balance of power in this country. Like that's where this is headed. And yeah, it's a bummer. Do you want to talk a little bit about the role of the media in this? Because that is something that is, I'm certain, going to be of we just had a thing today where some weirdo lefties on at the TrueAnon subreddit decided, and someone on Twitter decided to accuse me of getting a bunch of people in Atlanta arrested for terrorism because I interviewed them on camera. I've never interviewed anyone in Atlanta. I simply have never worked there. I'm not sure where the rumors started, but it's reigniting this kind of debate about.
It seems like tanky stuff.
It's nonsense, but it has reignited. And I saw this on the It Could Happen Here subreddit. People talking about like, obviously, this is nonsense, but it is looking at these terrorism charges. It's a simple fact that activists should never talk to press, and obviously, a lot of these arrests had nothing to do with anyone talking to the media. Like, folks were present at a riot and the cops were tackling folks. That's nobody but the cops' fault. But there's a conversation to be had about what is the smart balance in terms of getting PR and getting press coverage and getting word of mouth about a radical movement, and the fact that doing that will inevitably ramp up pressure. Like that is a reality that,
yes.
that when radical activists get attention from the media, the state cracks down. Now, does that mean that the media is responsible for the movement getting cracked down, or does it simply mean that the cops judge whether or not something's a threat by the amount of press that it's getting? This is an ongoing thing people are going to be talking about, and in a lot of ways it's a continuation of conversations people were having in 2020. But I'm interested in, because when you went over there, we had a few hours of debate after it became clear that the cops had killed a forest defender over okay, what's the right thing to do? Should Garrison head over to Atlanta? Should we have some boots on the ground for this because you'd been covering it for so long? And one of the things you pointed out is that there was a call for media coverage from people who were on the ground in Atlanta.
Yes, this is something I will get more into when I go in depth with this for an upcoming episode. Probably a two-parter. This is a conversation that people are constantly having in Atlanta. This is a conversation I've been having with people nonstop ever since coming here, ever since before coming here. This is something I don't want to just parachute into someone else's city. I had conversations with multiple people before coming over. There's a few aspects to this. The amount of people doing stuff, and how many people are in the forest. Not a giant number of people. There's not hundreds of people living in the woods. There's not tons of people. An intentional media strategy has been a part of this movement since the beginning, even among the insurrectionary anarchists who are here. This has been something that people have been, working on as a part of a decentralized movement, having conversations about. There's been coverage in the Rolling Stone that people here seem to be pretty happy with.
It was and the Guardian also published
people have been pretty happy.
Very good article.
People have been pretty happy with coverage from the Guardian. There's people have been pretty happy with some stuff from AJ Plus. People have been decently happy with the work that I've done on this, but based on many dozens and dozens of conversations I've had with people here. Ultimately, I don't. For what cops are doing in the forest, I don't think there seems to be a clear correlation between media coverage happening of stuff of the movement and cops' response to the forest. There's no linked timeline there. Cops are doing stuff in the forest because they want the forest cleared so they can build their police training facility. From what I've talked with people, the amount of pressure that has been caused by media covering the forest has not only elongated the construction process and elongated the amount the stuff that they're able to do. It has made it harder because this is not a very popular proposal. Even before the encampments started, it was estimated that like 70% of people in Atlanta were not for this. Were not for the construction of this facility. So I think people make a lot of intentional media choices. That's not to say that there isn't also intentionally harmful actors who are trying to frame this as Atlanta burning down, Atlanta in disorder, Antifa taking over sections of Atlanta. That is absolutely another part of it. But there's a people here have a very clear distinction between bad actors, between people who are providing accurate, fair coverage of what's going on, and then people who are just out to profit, which is like a lot of like local TV channels. I think stuff that happened on the protest on Saturday is a good example. There's this far right account that I'm not going to name, at least not yet. I might talk about it in the future. Who tries to collect information on protesters. They have someone on the ground who films. They also a really good aggregate of like random people's Instagram and TikToks or Snapchats of filming people from unfortunate angles. The local TV like Fox, like the local Fox News station, tries to get as much sensational footage of crimes as possible, and people to the best of their ability will try to block that off with like umbrellas if they see that happening. But you can, it's meh. There's definitely a clear intention that people in the movement do not want the media narratives around this to solely be decided by the state and be decided against people who are in clear opposition to them. That is absolutely something that people are putting attention in. That's because that creates a lot of really, really harmful scenarios, because the state itself is already a pretty powerful propaganda machine. Already a lot of local news just regurgitates state talking points, right? This is the idea of the fourth estate. Does seem to be a distinction between stuff like the fourth estate and stuff like the derivative idea of the fifth estate, of being more of like the people's voice for these sorts of movements. Also in that vein, there's stuff like the Atlanta People's Press, which is a like decentralized media collective run by a lot of like rad people who help to coordinate media coverage, who help to coordinate stuff with. I mean, they have worked with people. They've worked with us on the history of the old Atlanta prison farm. So I would say there's a lot of thought put into media strategy, and not like in like a Libby like optics way, but like actual effective media strategy that will improve material conditions and will help push the goals of the movement forward. The goal being that the construction of Cop City does not continue. So there's a lot of thought going into that, and that is viewed as another like that is another wing of the effort, right? There's stuff like the encampments, there's stuff like sabotage, there's stuff like protests, there's stuff like like a very above board stuff, that like very above ground organizations will do, like write-in campaigns, calling campaigns, and media strategy is another angle of this, because to completely give up the public perception of what's going on to the state is seen as a bad thing. So, but this is absolutely a contentious topic. I think people in Atlanta have a lot of nuanced conversations about this. And media stuff is handled with a lot more intention here than it has been in the Pacific Northwest. That is my subjective opinion, but based on.
I mean, it's a smaller community, so I think maybe it's easier. It does seem like there's more solidarity within the community and more of a shared vision.
I would say that's true. The community is forced to reinforce itself. It is small enough that it cannot treat people as disposable. It needs to maintain the people that it has, and so people work through problems, people work through conflicts and ways to actually resolve it and keep going to build everyone up and make them stronger. There is a shared community space, which I've been to a few times, and I think even just something like that is so useful in being able to actually keep something that resembles a community. You see a lot of like anarchists talk about how like community isn't a real thing. There isn't actually community, and in a lot of places, I would say that's true. A lot of places are just clique-driven, scene drama. It honestly gets towards, or like interscene conflict, if you don't want to use the word drama. Whereas
circular firing squad type shit.
Yeah. Whereas here, there is such a feeling of actual community. Like that actually is a thing here because people are forced to foster it. We're in the South. We're surrounded. You're surrounded by a lot of people who want to hurt you. Atlanta is the most surveilled city. There's so many different police forces. There's a police force for Fulton County. There's a police force for DeKalb County. There's a police force for Atlanta. There's the Georgia State Patrol. There's the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. There's the Georgia Department of Homeland Security. There's so many people, so many agencies are involved in this. There's so much outwards threats to people that you really are forced to keep people close and trust the people around you, because the consequences are quite dire. So people take things very seriously, and they put a lot of thought into a lot of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that also gels with my own experience in the South, right? It's easier to find communities of people who are doing anything kind of radical because there's that bunker mentality, right? You're under siege, you're surrounded on all sides. And, that's very different when you go to a place where there's kind of more like what would be in other places, deviancy is more the norm. I guess that is probably has a lot to do with the fact that this forest defense has so far been so successful in delaying the construction of this facility,
which it has. Construction deadlines continue to have been passed. It has at the very least showed that stuff like this can be resisted and significantly delayed. And at this point, they're projecting construction won't be complete for about 4 more years. And again, these deadlines keep getting pushed back and back. And that is really what the movement is trying to do. Keep these deadlines getting pushed back and back until they just give up on the project or try to put it somewhere else. And if they try to put it somewhere else, then the forest was defended. But then there's still the Stop Cop City aspect of being like, it can go somewhere else, but we don't want it there at all. And then at that point, the movement would change, very significantly. But in terms of the defend the Atlanta forest aspect of this, right, the whole goal is to make this as unenticing as possible. And there's a multitude of strategies involved in that, including stuff like propaganda, agitprop, media strategy, sabotage, direct action call-in campaigns, stuff about pressuring the construction agencies, all those sort of things.
That's so much more, because what you're talking about is what we call in sort of conflict studies a strategy of friction, right? And so much, there's always so much focus on kind of these, like we had in Portland in 2020, these like grand moments that are very visually spectacular of resistance. But what actually wins, because the state has the ability to take a lot of hits. It is a durable force. And if you're going up against a durable force, the only way to win victories is to be durable yourself and to wear away at them. It's friction. And I think that's still the winning play, is to keep up pressure. It's just the kinds of pressure, especially now that they've cleared out the tree sitters and stuff, and now that We've seen what they're going to do to people who are arrested at demonstrations. The kinds of friction that can be applied have to change. Otherwise, the movement's going to get worn down before the state does in this fight.
Something that Tortuguita has said is that the state is very good at doing violence. We cannot beat the state at violence. The state's good. The state will probably win that game. That's the entire point of the state. The state has a monopoly on violence. That is the entire point. They will win that. But there are other ways where we can see successes, and we have seen successes before. So it's not over. It will probably grow and change. What actually happens will remain to be seen. But I am I'm prepping to go through a whole bunch of my audio files and
welcome to that hell
and piece together kind of a pretty succinct deep dive that is a true successor to the original On the Ground at the Defend the Atlanta Forest episodes that I did last May. So
I look forward to that. I'm sure I know everyone else is as well. Thank you for going over there and being in the thick of it. And we'll continue to cover this story as best we can, whatever comes in the future. All right, I think that's an episode.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Life gets messy. Spills, stains, pet accidents, and kid chaos. But with Anabay, cleaning up is easy. Our sofas are fully machine washable, inside and out, so you never have to stress about messes again. Made with liquid and stain-resistant fabrics, that means fewer stains and more peace of mind. Designed for real life, our sofas feature changeable fabric covers, allowing you to refresh your style anytime. Need flexibility? Our modular design lets you rearrange your sofa effortlessly. Perfect for cozy apartments or spacious homes. Plus, they're earth-friendly and built to last. That's why over 200,000 happy customers have made the switch. Upgrade your space today. Sofas start at just $699. Visit washablesofas.com now and bring home a sofa made for life. That's washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
Welcome to Nick It Happened Here, a podcast about things falling apart and how to put them back together again. I'm your host, Mia Wong, and today I am returning to my roots in the seedy criminal anarchist hacker underground, which has gotten much less seedy and somehow even more gay since I was last there. And with me to talk about this is Maya Arson Crimeu, who is most recently famous as the person who owned an airline so hard they got a copy of the fucking no-fly list, which is...
Yeah, just first day things.
Yeah, so Maya, how are you doing being deluged with 1 trillion interview requests and
So yeah, it's not my first time experiencing like a big news cycle, but this is certainly the biggest one yet. I'm surprised that this is bigger than the one I've had before with other stories.
Yeah.
But I feel like becoming a trans femme meme at the same time as I have like a national security news cycle going on probably helped a bit.
I'm very happy for Weed Cat. Like that cat did like that. Every single other thing that has happened to Weed Cat has like done that thing dirty. But I'm happy for it.
Yeah, WeCat is now just like a hacking icon, and I'm so here for it.
Yeah,
did you see like 15 minutes before we got on call? There's now a like Bingle meme from the SCP Foundation on their Twitter.
God.
They commissioned an artist to make a Bingle meme. Like it has just turned into a thing now. Like that's the wildest
so
thing
good.
About it. It's not even like the whole hacking story anymore. It's just the fact that I have
Bingle.
turned into a meme. Like how yeah. And especially that Bingle turned into a meme, because that started as a like Discord in-joke. Like that's all it was, and now it's the name of this cat.
Okay, so we should explain for people who don't know what this cat is. This is the Pokemon Spriggerato. Is it Spriggerato? How do you
Sprigatito, I think.
Yeah, Sprigatito.
I don't know how to properly pronounce it.
Yeah, neither do I. It's Italian. I'm under no obligation to pronounce an Italian-sounding thing correctly. It's fine.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's the Wheat Cat. Like Wheat Cat and Bingle are now the only 2 acceptable names for this Pokemon.
Yeah, but in the blog where you went through and talked about how you got the no-fly list by owning this thing, you'd posted a picture of this little boy.
Yeah, I did actually like take that picture while I was like hacking this stuff and like talking in some like small friends Discord about it, and I just posted that together with like the phrase "this aviation shit gets serious." That's why that's also in the blog. I expected that to become the meme that blows up. That this aviation shit gets serious, because that's just so stupid as like the thing. But I guess Bingle it is, and that's funny because it was just an in-joke nonsense word, and now the entire world knows about it, and it's like a trans femme thing.
It rules.
But it rules, yeah.
So I guess we should talk about what actually you did. So I am not a very technical person. I'm out here defying transgirl stereotypes by sucking ass at coding. So my understanding of what happened is you were browsing a list of servers that are connected to the internet that you can use through sort of like various search engines that do this.
Exactly.
And you stumbled upon the server that belongs to Commute Air, and then they just like had a bunch of hard-coded privileges there and like
exactly
AWS.
Yeah. And it's still funny to me how like I realized what it was because I saw like the word ACARs and stuff, and I was like, wait, that reminds me of like Mentor Pilot YouTube videos, because of course I'm an autistic trans femme and binge watch Mentor Pilot while eating dinner. So that is the only reason I clocked it as like an aviation thing, and that's something I should dig into deeper, because like you can imagine, like, while I'm going through these search results, I'm looking at, like, hundreds of servers in a day, and most of the stuff I decide is boring, or it was too easy to hack, so I'm not going further because I have ADHD. So, yeah, and in this case, I was like, wait, that's an aviation word. I've heard that before. So I digged a little deeper, and there were just passwords there. And then, like, 2 minutes after I found that server, I was looking at like ACARS messages, as in like messaging between ground stations and airplanes. And I was just like, yeah, this is a story, and started tweeting about it, looking for journalists to work with, because with stories like this, I like to work with journalists from the very start, because I want to make sure it doesn't get wiped under the rug when I report it to a company. So I make sure that when I do reach out and get things fixed, I reach out via journalists so that the companies know, yeah, this is being reported on. So they can't be like, yeah, we will fix it under the condition that you never tell anyone about our bad security. Because like the whole point of what I'm doing is exposing like the security issues, but also exposing, with a political background at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I guess like another thing, I don't know how many people sort of are aware of this, but like another thing that has happened with people who have tried to go to companies and been like, hey, here's a security thing, is like the company tries to like go after them criminally like immediately, which sucks ass and is the worst.
Yeah, so from that standpoint, it doesn't even matter if I like do it like this or actually report it to them. But this way, I get to talk about it publicly, and like that's important. Not because I want cloud. Like I don't mind the cloud, but like yeah.
And so okay, so there's been a lot of focus on the fact that you found the no-fly list on there, which is very funny. But okay, why? Like, okay, one of the things I'm trying to figure out: why were there just messages from like ground crews to airplanes just like sitting around on this random server that's just like exposed to the internet?
Right. So the messages weren't directly on that server, but like it's a server where they like for testing purposes, like I don't know how much I can dumb this down really, but where they like test the software automatically, and so there's all and. Because of how they configured the server, I could just have access to all the source code, which included lots of passwords. For example, for like the server that then had the ACARS messages on it.
Okay, so okay.
But yeah, or access credentials for APIs that would have allowed me to update the crew on a flight,
Jesus
or
Christ,
cancel flights, or which, like, if you think about it, that's almost the bigger story. The fact that I, like, at least theoretically could have been able to change crews, because, like, that's the real terrorism risk.
Yeah, like
if I'm just if I'm just allowed to spell it out like that, like that's the dream of any.
Yeah, like I mean, you know, like I mean, one of the things you were talking about when you're writing about this was that like journalists thought that you were the one who had like caused all of the flight delays. It was like, no, that was just their computer breaking.
No,
but like
that was just funny because I didn't even know the thing with with the FAA happened. But I was like tweeting about, I have a big aviation story. Any journalists interested? It's like a security breach, and people were like, "Wait, what did you do to the FAA?" And I was like, "Huh? What FAA?" So that happened. Like, I am so not up to date on news anymore.
Yeah, I mean, so for people who don't know what that story is, so basically the Federal Aviation Administration had a computer problem. It was the very, very short version. They had a computer problem, and this grounded like a shit ton of flights because these huge like computer bottlenecks. Where if we saw this over like last month when there was when all of those flights got down by Southwestern because their computer system just went down.
Right. Yeah. It's the same thing except US wide.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because I first found this server like exactly the day after. Like that was literally a day after the FAA incident. So people were rightly assuming that was me, which it obviously wasn't, but like it would have been cool.
Yeah.
But
it's also like it is very disturbing to me that like this kind of stuff is just sitting there and like someone could just like theoretically go in and screw with all of this stuff, which is like, and then also the fact that like there was just all of like the personal information of all of the pilots on there. Like what the hell? Like that is
it
is terrifying.
Yeah, it is crazy how much stuff is just out there, and like that's part of what I try to show with my work. It's just, there is so much stuff out there, and it's just waiting to be found. And I both mean that in terms of like, you can find shit if you try to, but also in the sense of things are not secure. Like like all the systems are like entire lives depend on nowadays. None of those systems are really secure. They're entirely dependent on like one system administrator who doesn't get paid enough. Our entire like computer systems depend on like a bunch of furries being motivated enough to do their work. So basically, like the moral of the story is pay furries well enough. And
this is probably like another thing that I was thinking about when I was looking at this, which is like, Okay, so like when I was like a teenager, like one of the things that I think I was the most wrong about that I believed was like I actually genuinely believed that like automating cars was a good idea because humans are really, really bad at driving. And then I had to learn to program, and I had to like see scientist code, and I had to I open a program, and there's a section of it that no one knows how it works, and I look at the notes, and the notes say I didn't write this, I don't know how it works. This is produced at 4 a.m. on like 700 milligrams of caffeine, and I was like,
yeah.
Oh.
On at least caffeine, if not amphetamines.
Yeah, well, to be fair, these were astronomers, so I think it was actually just a lot of caffeine and not amphetamines. But like and then I had the realization that the only single thing that we as humans are worse at than driving is coding.
Exactly. Yeah, we are even worse at that. And then the other thing we're also very bad at is labeling data, which is like the whole thing machine learning is dependent on.
Yep.
Like because like the entire intelligence of like an automotive car, like a self-driving car, is entirely dependent on how intelligent the like underpaid workers in Kenya are. That get paid like $2 an hour to label things as car, human, and child, and then make moral decisions of whether or not those should get run over.
Yeah, and like this is one of my sort of political things that I'm coming to is I think the only people who should be allowed to do machine learning are astronomers, and no one else should be allowed to do it. And even they, and because they have a legitimate reason, which is that like they actually they're doing a bunch of big data, like most of astronomy is just big data analysis.
Yeah,
and then B, like the analysis itself doesn't really hurt anyone. You can argue about where they're putting the telescopes, but like you're not like.
Yeah, just like anything that involves humans probably should not also involve AI in any way.
Yeah, terrible idea. But yeah, I guess okay. So circling back around to the point I was going to make, and then got distracted talking about AI because such is the world. Yeah, so it's really remarkable to me like how little technical skill you need to just like absolutely own enormous corporations and governments.
Yeah,
and. But the other thing that struck me about this that I've been thinking about for a while is that, like, okay, on the one hand, you have how easy hacking is. Like this server stuff's, like, easier than the stuff that I remember back in the day, which was a lot of, like, people, like, someone somewhere long ago in a galaxy far, far away wrote, like, a script, and then you just copy and paste it into, like, every single text box on a web page. And, like, that's, I think, like, that's probably maybe, like, more hackery, quote unquote, than just, like, looking through a list of servers.
Yeah.
But, like, even that is, like, the level of technical sophistication is so low. Or
Yeah, you don't need technical skill. You just need to be stupid enough to pull it up.
but the thing that I realized about this, and I was thinking about this, was, like, on the one hand, the level of technical sophistication you need for this is extremely low. On the other hand, one of the sort of one of the sort of trends of the way capitalism has been distributing digital technology, which is sort of by apping it, like which has been packing it into apps and these closed garden ecosystems and like putting UIs in between you and like you and what's actually happening on your computer has been, it's been designed in a way to make it quote unquote consumer friendly, but also it's been designed in a way such that like successive generations of computer users just have less and less knowledge of how their devices and technology actually work.
Yeah, that's like there's that whole thing of like about how like younger kids nowadays don't understand the concept of folders anymore because like that's completely abstracted away on like smartphones and tablets.
And Chromebook in particular, which I genuinely think we need to ban Chromebooks in schools. Like just like for the sake of human computer
I forgot
literacy.
how big of a thing that is in the US.
Yeah, it's awful. Like, oh god, they're the worst.
Yeah, I don't know. Like at the end of the day, what I wanted to say earlier about like how easy it is to hack all the big corporations and stuff. And it's just like the answer as to why is just capitalism.
Yeah.
It's cheaper not to give a shit about cybersecurity. It's cheaper to just pay when you get hacked than to like secure your shit up front. Because like the only people that will really suffer is like your customers and your employees, and they can forget. Your shareholders are gonna be just fine. Like,
and you look at the way the regulatory structure works. It's like, okay, so what happens if you get in trouble for something like this? Well, the government takes a cut, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Like it's literally like you can budget getting hacked. There is cyber insurance now. You can get insured against getting hacked. Like it's just capitalism at work.
And I feel like one of the things that journalists have sort of, I don't know, and I understand why they focus on it, but I feel like there's a lot of focus in sort of like in tech journalism and in journalism on sort of on the hacking stuff in like the really big sophisticated like Stuxnet or what was the more recent one? Can't remember the name of it, but like the really sort of convoluted trawling program, the things that like take nation state level resources, and it's like, well, yeah, this was always the thing with the NSA too, where it's like, well, okay, so right. the on the one hand, the NSA does have enough money to like spend like $50 million factoring one number so they could break a bunch of encryption. On the other hand, like,
they can just force U.S. companies to give them
access. And also they force U.S. companies to give them access, and also like, I don't know, they can get most of this information because like some server admin in like a farm in like the middle of rural Nebraska like misconfigured a file, like misconfigured a server. So like,
I don't know. That's also what I find funny about the things I find, because I like almost exclusively go for like the low hanging fruit, because like. Why would I invest more effort when I can get really big scoops like this?
Yeah.
And also sometimes I do kind of think about how, hey, like maybe I just cut off access to the CIA. Maybe this was like how the CIA got this access. Maybe the NSA was here. Obviously, most likely not in most cases, but it's just a funny little thought of like, who did I just cut access to? By reporting this issue.
I will say this, like, I can't imagine that there isn't someone at the NSA and there isn't someone at the CIA whose job it is to do exactly the same thing you do and, like, scroll through all the server list every day.
Absolutely. Like that's why by now I use Sumai, like, for the search engines. There's Shodan, which is, like, the famous US one, which is why I still always say I found it on Shodan, even though by now I use Sumai. Because Shodan has like half of like all US IPs censored, and they have an artificial delay between finding the servers and showing them to you, and have really bad search. And I'm pretty sure it's just because at one point the US government got upset because they kept getting hacked. And so but like the Chinese are very willing to give me all the US IPs ever. They do censor a lot of Chinese IPs though, but like,
and I think a lot of that was, so I was trying to figure out why that name was really familiar. But then I remembered that there was a story where some researcher did like almost the exact same thing you did to a Chinese security company, and found out that they were doing, guess what, exactly the same shit the U.S. government was doing, which was using a bunch of surveillance cameras to spy on Muslims, and it was like, well, this is great.
Yeah, it's always like it's always a pointing and doing the same thing behind the scenes. Yeah.
Okay, so we unfortunately going to have to take an ad break. But then once we return from capitalism, we will go back to opposing capitalism. Welcome to 2023. All right, and we're back.
Nice.
Yeah, so speaking of anti-capitalism, that was another thing I wanted to sort of talk about, which is that, okay, so like long ago in a galaxy far, far away, little baby 15-year-old Mia was radicalized, like back when I was trying to overthrow my first government. It was a lot of it was being in the same sphere as a lot of sort of anarchist hackers that were in the sort of like loose anonymous sphere. But by like 2015, 2016, like that stuff was kind of falling apart, like partially because of infighting, partially because of Fed infiltration, partially because
everyone got arrested.
At
that point, all the big players have been arrested like 3 years prior.
Yeah, and the other thing that was going on too, I think, was like Anonymous, like its politics were always really incoherent. Like you had, I don't know, you had just like the thing I remember was there was a big split between like basically the fascists and the anarchists, between like over Trump specifically, like.
Yeah. I think the thing with Anonymous is just like the way it started. It started as just like a group of trolls.
Yeah, unfortunately. It was like, well, okay.
The pitch just say, like, I mean, it makes sense that Anonymous is the way it is and has been the way it has been. I think it's still like important that it exists and that it motivates people. Like, I have been involved with Anonymous before. There's the one thing I can talk about with like Operation Myanmar, where we did like support things. That was shortly before my indictment, but Yeah, it's interesting. Like Anonymous brings people together to do operations.
Yeah, and
and that's what they do, and they can do PR for stuff. Yeah, I don't want to like talk down on them.
Yeah, no, but I think like, well, I think
like,
especially like in
I think,
like when I was getting involved in 2013, it was like it was a lot different. Like it was, you know, like
it was a thing.
Yeah, it was both like a thing, and also it wasn't just like it wasn't just that it was sort of like, okay, we're like trolling we're trolling a government by like taking down their web pages or whatever. Like they were actually sort of there was real coordination between like like, you know, revolutionaries on the ground in like Egypt or in like Brazil and stuff like that. And
that does still happen.
Yeah,
that does still happen. It's just less of a public thing. Like that was what we did in Myanmar as well, is where we did communications with people on the ground, where we helped them communicate among each other, where we helped them keep the internet up, even when the government tried to turn it off.
Which is really sick.
Other fun shenanigans like that, and also archival, and that, like, just in case some kids does decide to DDoS literally every webpage in the country, which is mostly nonsensical, but like, yeah. But I do find it interesting how, like, yeah, there's like the 2012, 2013 generation that was mostly anonymous dominated, and now we're in like this new generation where it's just small little groups.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that because...
And it's much more decentralized. I don't know. It's weird to talk about it because at the end of the day, I inspired a lot of it, which is really weird to say.
Yeah.
It's so weird to say that I, like, but yeah, I'm kind of part of what revived hacktivism. And it sounds so pretentious of me to just say that myself, but like...
Yeah, no.
It is kind of what happened in like 2019, 2020.
Yeah, and like that was what was interesting to me too, because it was very like... I don't know, like the 2012 stuff was also like, it was very, very, I guess, media centered in a way, where it was about drawing masses of people into things, and then using it to sort of get media attention, using it to sort of like, I don't know, be this sort of like online, like also this sort of like online social movements in a way that I think is very different than the modern stuff. So this is my conception of it though, because I've also been kind of like, I don't know, I was off doing other stuff in 2019 that had nothing to do with this. So yeah, I'm curious. Well, okay. How do I put this? So I'm curious, like, how you see the politics of these new groups, either sort of as different from what came before it.
I think it's hard for a lot of the groups. It's hard to like see what their politics are, and some of them aren't even like, there's things like Lapsus that aren't specifically doing hacktivism, but they're accidentally doing anti-corporate activism by just leaking everything. And that's like groups that are like, in the way that they operate, are very clearly inspired by my work that I used to do. And they're just not very like political per se. But I still call them hacktivists, because even if it might not be their intention, they're doing activism, and they're making corporations angry and wasting corporate resources. And in my book, that counts as like activism, and the fact that they in a way fight for like freedom of information, even if that might not be the goal. I don't know, I feel like that is the main unifying factor now. It's just the fight for information, because like currently like the single biggest hacktivist thing happening right now since like 2019 is just leaking, the whole leaktivism thing that happened before as well, but like now that's like the main thing. Before it was often a lot like just DDoSing and stuff, but now we're so focused on like getting documents, getting software, getting files, getting like proof that things happened, getting the fucking no-fly list. It's just a very different environment where like the goals are probably about the same in a lot of ways, at least for the people who do have an ideology.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I feel like it's just much more focused on like releasing information into the free, which I find really great. Like that is kind of my big fight that I try to devote myself to.
Yeah, I wanted to ask also sort of just about your personal anarchism, because I don't know, I like talking about anarchism, and everyone
has their own. I don't know. It's a difficult question, and I feel my answer to this question changes like every other day. I especially find it hard because like I am like doing work in very specific focused bits of like anarchist work, and so I don't really want to lock myself into like some sort of so it's like very fluid. I'm just like obviously against states. I'm like I don't know. It's hard. No governments, no shitty corporations, and just like having fun with friends and being gay. That is like
this rules. We take this. This is a good form of anarchism.
Yeah, I don't know, just some form of like queer anarchism and yeah,
being gay and doing crimes. It's a good thing.
I guess in a way, like what kind of defines me and what keeps getting me into the spotlight is that I do just kind of have like a very strong moral compass, and I go by that rather by what's legal or not legal.
Yeah.
Or like, sure, I try to stay within like some safe boundaries, especially now like post indictment. Given that there are definitely even more eyes on me now than before, and this podcast is definitely being played at some FBI.
Oh yeah, there's oh yeah.
So that's something to consider. But like, yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I want to demonstrate is that like if you have morals, you can't just stick by them. Like no one is stopping you from doing that. They might try to, but like you can just stick with your morals.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning. Even like, you know, okay, like a lot of people go to prison for doing stuff like this. Some of them didn't. Like there's like to the best of my knowledge, there is at least still one LulzSec guy who's just in the wind who they never got. Yeah, and LulzSec, like they had a Fed mole in the group, and one of these people still got away.
Fuck Sabu.
Yeah, fuck him. By the way,
just in general, interject real quick. Fuck Sabu.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, Sabu's basically the guy that the Feds flipped inside of LulzSec, who got everyone sent to prison. Fuck him.
I do have to say, I kind of get why he flipped. Like, he at that point already had a family and stuff. And, like, I get that is hard. But still, you gave up your friends for
simply do
like,
not
safety
do that.
And, like, I don't know. And the fact that he still, like, has some sort of image, honestly, I don't know. It's just InfoSec community,
it
I
sucks.
guess. I don't know. It's interesting, for sure. But yeah, I can't comment too much on my own case. There are a lot of funny jokes to be made that I shouldn't.
Yeah, the Feds suck. I'm just gonna say that. Like, oh god, it's been a bad week of Feds in the U.S. too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Honestly, just one thing again about the TSA hack. I am so curious what's gonna happen with the congressional inquiry.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
but like especially since like this means that the Republicans are going to be exposed to my blog post, presumably. And I am so excited for all the slurs they can come up with.
It is going to be extremely funny. I'm also very excited for like the TERFs to be like, this is terrorism. See, we've been right all along.
Yeah. I have gotten that before. I have gotten TERF replies before on like articles about me where they were like, see, no, women don't commit crime. So this is clear proof that. And it's just like, what are you talking about? This is my male genes coming out.
Yeah, it's also like, ma'am,
committing crimes.
Ma'am, you are British. Like, do you know what people did so you have the right to vote? Like, come on.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is that they at the same time also like fetishize the whole suffragette thing.
Yeah,
while having no fucking clue what that movement was.
Yeah, it's like no suffragette would ever horsewhip Rishi Sunak. I mean, not suffragettes. No TERF would ever horsewhip Rishi Sunak. Unlike the suffragettes, who
yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's silly. I'm surprised how little harassment I've gotten on Twitter so far. If we exclude the whole bi-lesbian discourse bit that happened yesterday.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry for restarting that discourse.
Okay.
I think me talking about that single-handedly restarted that Discord.
It just happens periodically. Yeah.
It's just funny because like I was just like, yeah, this is gonna get me some hate replies, but like within 5 minutes I had 21 private quotes.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, like I won't make an official statement on that, which is that if you give a single shit about people calling themselves bi lesbians, like please let me know so I can trade lives with you. Like you seem to have like very few problems going on. I would love to like have grown up in the world where like that's the thing that you think like matters.
I don't know. I think it's funny how there's people who were like wanting to follow me, wanting to interact with me as like it's Furian Kitten who like does funny things to the U.S. government, but then they draw the line at the specific sexuality.
Yeah, it's like, really?
And like, I then made like a post where I was like, sorry, I deleted that. I don't have the energy to deal with people getting so upset over an innocent word. And that has gotten so many quote tweets being like, yeah, and that innocent word in question was bi lesbian, as if I said like the N word or something. Like that was literally the kind of response I got. And it's just like, do you not have anything else to do in your day?
Like, do you know how many people the cops killed last week? Can you please do something? Like, hey, come on! Out of all the things that are happening here right now, like...
Yeah, especially then when some of the people that come up with that are like non-binary lesbians, which, if you know anything about this Puritan discourse, like half of them would also like throw these under the pit because no, non-binary lesbians also can't exist. And like, it's just, why are you fighting for the TERFs? Like that is my one single question I have to all the 14-year-old queers on Twitter.com.
Yeah.
Also, why did the discourse ever escape Tumblr? Like that was enough of that discourse 4 years ago.
Because all the Tumblr refugees came to Twitter.
Yeah, but they could have left the discourse there.
Yeah, but no, the world. I don't know. Twitter in the last like Twitter's discourse has never been good. But like in the last couple of years, it's just been getting steadily worse, and it's
it's just the same side. Like it's not even that it's just bad discourse. It's just the same discourse every week, and I'm just tired of it. And I guess now that I'm a big account, I have to have an opinion on everything.
Yeah. And also the fun part about being trans is everyone is like absolutely razor focused for like the exact one word that you say wrong, so they can legitimately quote unquote be transphobic at you, and it's like this is great. Like this is a great system that we've developed for existing with each other. We could simply not do this.
You could just say like the fact that literally like I was like I'm gonna see what happens if I say bi lesbian on an account with 24,000 followers. And the fact that it literally took seconds for people to tell all their mutuals to unfollow me because I'm highly problematic, it was quite interesting. And someone was just like, "This has completely shattered my worldview," and I'm just like, "Sorry, if your worldview gets shattered by my sexuality, you have some soul seeking to do." Like,
yeah,
like actually, like.
I grew up.
Like for some people, me saying the phrase bi lesbian was genuinely like my milkshake duck moment.
Yeah, it was like a second what's it called? A second sexuality description has hit the towers. Like it was.
Yeah,
God.
It's so like. God, it was like 5 a.m. when I made that tweet. It was just like, oh, I'm gonna get a little silly with it, and I just expected like a backlash, but not that much. It was just too much, and yeah, like I know it's not like backlash that matters, and I should just ignore it. But it's just like so overwhelming.
Yeah, I guess. Do you have anything else that you want to say?
I don't know. I think that covers like most of the things I have to talk about.
Cool.
Yeah, just like be gay, do crime, hack the planet.
Oh my god. Genuinely, it is one of my favorite things in the world that they made the movie Hackers, and it was the worst depiction of hackers.
So
but then also,
right.
It was funny. So I didn't watch that. I mean, okay, I watched it like not for the first time. Like it wasn't like Like I was like not that old when I watched it, but it was after I like first ran into hackers, and so it took me a while to figure out that like, wait, hold on, no, Hack the Planet is a thing that everyone says, but that's actually because it's a joke about hackers, which I love.
Yeah, see, I still find it funny how Hackers is a movie that got hacking culture completely wrong and changed it forever.
Yeah.
Because there is, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but from like DEF CON from 1996, there's a page on the official DEF CON website talking about how bad Hackers is and how it gets everything wrong and no one should watch this movie. And now you look at this like 20 years later, and that's just what hacking culture turned into in the meantime.
It's very funny.
The most incredible thing about Hackers is that someone managed to get the queerest fucking movie ever made by one of the biggest companies in Hollywood, and also make it about hacking, and like it's the best piece of cinema ever, and I stand by this. Like, it fucking sucks in a lot of ways, but it's just they just managed to make a movie where no one is cis somehow, and it has Angelina Jolie in it. Like,
so no one is cis. It's pretty amazing. I will say the two Asian characters are kind of whack, but
yeah.
Other than that, it's like, it's a
it's a whack movie. Like if you look at it objectively, it's a pretty bad movie.
Yeah, like there's, I know there was shit, like in a lot of ways, stuff in the 90s is absolutely terrible, but also like there was stuff you could just do in movies in the 90s that like you can't now.
Yeah.
Like my example for this is, I may have said this on the podcast before, but like they did a like completely straight like modern day live adaptation of Romeo and Juliet that is like, it's Romeo and Juliet, it's exactly the lines in Shakespeare, but it's like with characters set in like the like modern times, and they're shooting guns at each other. But like one of the things that happens in that is there's just like a black guy doing drag, and it's just like a thing, like nobody comments on it, like it's just like a thing and he's having a good time. And you could not like people would show up to like people like I mean, like
that would be on Tucker Carlson, like
like people you'd have like mobs showing up in front of your house, like it's
like I don't know, like if Hackers came out now, we would have like Tucker Carlson complaining about the woke mob trying to turn the kids into gay hacktivists. Like I don't know. I love the movie so much, not because it's good, but because it's culturally important.
Yes.
And the characters are like great. Like they made everyone queer somehow, and I'm still not sure whether that was intentional or not.
I don't know. I lean towards they didn't know what they were doing, and that makes it even funnier.
Yeah, it makes it so much better, and also the fact that it's like got past like producers and everything, and it was made and it's the queerest piece of like Hollywood media I have ever seen that wasn't meant to be queer. It's just like cool that we went on this tangent because
we simply love to see it. Be gay, do crimes, hack the planet. This is not legally, for the FBI, this is not legally actionable. This is a joke.
This is
as
a joke.
You can tell clearly.
Famous catchphrases.
From the movie Hackers, which you can watch.
From the movie Hackers,
in places.
You can watch it very legally on the internet. I actually don't know if it's on any streaming platform. I don't think so.
I watched it. I think it is, because I watched it with my family kind of recently, which was a wild time. It's probably streaming somewhere.
It's an Apple TV apparently.
Huh. Yeah, so it's there. You can find it there. You can find it in other places.
You can find it somewhere, both legally and illegally.
Yes.
If I'm allowed to endorse like piracy on your podcast.
We did an entire episode about how to pirate stuff. So
hell yeah. So you can find it both legally and illegally. And if you're lucky, I'm the one seeding the torrent for you. So.
Well, on that. Oh, actually, okay. The other thing I actually should be before yet. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter at _9crimeu, and in case Twitter suspends me once again for the 6th time, I have a website at maya.crimeu.gay.
It rules. It's so good. Yes.
That's like half the reason I'm famous now. It's just because my website is ping.
It's great. Yeah, so this has been Make It Happen Here. You can find us at Happen Here Pod at Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, I guess I'm at itmechr3. Yeah, go in crime.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Kids, pets, life, your sofa sees it all. But with a washable sofa, stains don't stand a chance. All of our sofa collections come with fully machine washable covers and cushions, making cleanup effortless. Liquid and stain-resistant fabrics provide extra protection against everyday messes. Plus, with modular designs, you can rearrange your sofa however you like. Perfect for growing families and changing spaces. Starting at just $699, it's time to upgrade to a stress-free, mess-proof sofa. Visit washablesofas.com today and save. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
Welcome back. Once again, this is the crew from It's Going Down, squatting the airwaves of It Could Happen Here. On today's show, we're going to look at the growing crisis around homelessness and how the state has moved to address it with brutal sweeps and new laws that target the poor. In the wake of the global COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. housing crisis deepened and homelessness grew. Following the George Floyd rebellion, Republicans pointed to a rising murder rate during the 2022 election cycle, along with growing encampments of the houseless as examples of rampant Democratic mismanagement and the supposed end result of defunding the police. In reality, 2 years after the uprising, both funding for the police has only increased, along with the number of people killed per year by law enforcement, while growing police budgets have had no impact on crime. Meanwhile, both parties have embraced a draconian crackdown on the houseless, as a slew of new laws target sleeping outside, and police move against encampments, even in the midst of extreme weather. But a new wave of resistance is also materializing, as communities mobilize to provide mutual aid, fight for access to housing, and resist sweeps of encampments. On today's episode, we investigate the history of these struggles and how these tactics, ranging from squatting to encampment defense, are spreading across the social terrain as the current crisis deepens and more people find themselves out in the cold. But to kick things off, let's talk about state strategy. Just why are they carrying out these sweeps?
I think one of the first things that comes to mind for me is how this behavior from like the Democrats or like liberals or progressives isn't an anomaly, that they are, that their role is facilitating a capitalist state, just with slightly different tactics than the Republicans. But basically, they're trying to do that. What they're doing, which is basically demonizing unhoused people, and sort of pushes the blame of what's going on, of the failings basically of our culture, onto these individuals that are unhoused, rather than on their failures as like mayors of democratic cities or whatever, and the kind of logical outcome of class-based capitalist extractive society. And when they can just make it that instead of it being like a social problem that people are unhoused, they can make it these bad homeless people and they're dirty and crime or whatever, and just kind of try and eliminate that to protect their image. But I think it's just a way of like scapegoating a built-in problem with how they operate. And actually, it's something that makes me think, especially thinking about San Francisco in terms of like precedents for this, it makes me think about the ugly laws, which for anyone who doesn't know, that was something kind of in the 1800s. San Francisco implemented it in 1867, which was a law forbidding people who were kind of like unsightly, according to this law, to not be seen in the street. So if people were physically disabled or they were begging or even limping, there were laws targeting them. And part of it even says that anything that's triggering like disgust or guilt is like to not be seen. And I feel like it's a really similar thing that's happening now. And so, yeah, progressive liberals, they do this.
I'm glad that you brought up ableism, because I think that this ties in real well into that. So we live in essentially like an extremely ableist society that says if you don't work, you die. And I think criminalizing homeless people is a huge part of that. So I mean, really think about it. We have to rent our bodies to corporations so we can get money to pay rent to landlords. Essentially, we're being paid a tax to live. But how do you force people? How else do you get people to do the drudgery that we have to do at work if you don't like show them the consequences of that? So like if they were nice to homeless people, if they were like, oh, here's a free home, then that creates a precedent of like, oh, you cannot work and have a home. So like they don't want to do that. So I mean, I think one thing that people don't talk about, like homelessness is existing. I think it's like a way to like scare us into essentially doing these things that we don't want to do to live, because you're constantly reminding us of like, oh, you want to quiet quit? You want to go on a strike? This is what your life could be. You're going to be homeless. And not only that, we're going to make it so that you can't exist as a homeless person in this society. Because if people, like if you go to New York right now, all these brunchy folks, they eat on the sidewalk. They have all these like houses built up on the sidewalk. People are drinking mimosas, but you can't have a tent. But what are these makeshift things? So I mean, it goes to show you like, it's not even like the idea of taking public space. It's like who's taking public space. And if it's somebody who's not serving capitalism, you can't take up public space.
The housing question, to really understand the connection with Democrats and capitalist understandings of housing, we have to think about how housing, property structures space, right? How capitalism structures space. And so, when I was thinking about this before we were recording, I keep going back to James Scott, Seeing Like a State, which is, an amazing book. If people haven't read it, absolutely pick up a copy. But in the first, couple of chapters, one of the things that he talks about is land enclosure. And he's talking about this structure specifically in France, in which sort of towards the end of monarchism, there was an attempt to actually create a tax regime where individuals were taxed. And to do that, individuals had to exist legally, but they didn't at that point. They existed as communities within feudalism. They paid taxes as communities. They held land as communities. When the French government went to these towns to figure out who owned what they found was that every single community broke up their understanding of land differently. And that it wasn't really based on ownership, it was based on use. And so they had to standardize all of that. And to do that, they had to fragment the commons. They had to sit there and go, you own this piece of land and you own this piece of land. They did that. They made maps, and they went back 2 years later. They realized nobody was following the maps. But what they did was they started charging taxes based on the maps. And so people had to start making money on the land to pay the taxes based on the maps that have nothing to do with their lives, right? And what that was the creation of property, right? Because when we think about property, there's this fiction of, stateless capitalism, right? You have like Murray Rothbard, Ayn Rand types who are talking about, capitalism can exist without the state. But really, we can see the fallacy of that when we look at the question of property, right? The question of exclusion from property or exclusion from space. Not only is it fragmenting public space, but we start to look at the way that all of a sudden property has to exist, right? And so in the Rust Belt, for example, after the financial crisis, cities, Cleveland, Buffalo, Detroit, got all this money from the federal government to tear houses down. And they were tearing down like 50 houses a day in these cities, right? For years on end. And these are cities that have people that don't have housing. And so you sit there and you go, well, why are they tearing houses down when there are people that don't have housing, right? When there's more vacant houses than there are people without housing. How can you justify tearing the houses down? And the answer was, we need to create a real estate market again. Because if you allow people to just squat, there's no reason to pay for housing. And if there's no reason to pay for housing, housing ceases to be a commodity, right? Like, this is actually the important part, that capitalism has to function through that exclusion of access. Otherwise, commodities can't have the scarcity necessary to allow them to be priced, right? There can't be a supply that is lower than a demand, for example, unless you artificially limit supply, right? And so when we really see this, we can really see not just the way that capitalism sort of atomizes us, right? Creates us as people who live in individual housing units, as opposed to as people who conceive of ourselves as living in communities. But it also really comes to highlight the relationship between the state and the police and capital, and how we have to understand capital as a content of the state. It is a definition of life that is imposed through policing purely and can't exist outside of that. Right? It's the fallacy of quote unquote anarcho-capitalism, which isn't a thing that really exists for this exact reason. Right? And so when we're looking at why are Democrats engaging in techniques that involve pushing people off the streets, this is exactly why. It's a capitalist political party. They're trying to maintain property. They're trying to maintain property value, right? And this is why you see this happen in cities where gentrification is really horrible at a much faster clip than you see it in cities where there's like open housing stock.
That really makes me think about the beginning of workhouses in England in the 1830s and the poor law reforms. And it goes back to what you were saying more about just that making it really undesirable to be poor, like needing a group of people who are in that position. And that workhouses was something that were introduced by liberals, progressives, like this as a form of like changing the sort of poor relief system. So instead of giving people money so they could be supported and stay with their families or whatever, people were put into these institutions where they're separated from their kids, from their husbands and wives or whatever. And it's meant to be so undesirable that you would only seek it if you were sort of desperately needed it or whatever, as a way to like save on taxes for like money to people, basically. It's really fucked up. And it's like, this was part of a sort of social reform, progressive like project. And I think we see echoes of that in this.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up is like you talked about atomizing and isolating and like how capitalism does that. One thing that I think about specifically in New York is that homeless encampments do offer this radical idea of like what it looks like to take back a public space and to collectively like meet together, and like that's the other thing that I was thinking about last night when I was high. This whole idea of what happens if we just allow homeless encampments to spread and take over, then people who are not homeless start interacting with homeless people as we do, like people in the city do. Then you form these connections and these relationships, and then it becomes perfectly normal for people to take over public spaces. And then what does that mean? Then we have to provide services in public spaces like bathrooms and showers, because the public would start requesting and like asking for these things, the more of a relationship they form with homeless folks. So I think part of the cleaning, which is what the term Eric Adams has used, which is absolutely disgusting in terms of like moving homeless people. I think a huge part of it is also just like destroying the notion that we own public spaces. Like, you do not own a public space, and we want to let you know that, and we want you out. So I think that really, and the addition aspect of that too is like when you look at homelessness in New York, like a huge chunk of it are like black people too. So there's like a racial component of it too when you really want to add it. So this whole idea of like black people are not allowed to take up space, and then specifically if you're homeless, you're not allowed to take up public space. So I wanted to bring that in. It's like very much related to work, but also just related to the idea that the government owns everything and corporations own everything, including the spaces that we exist in.
Well, speaking of corporations owning everything, here's some words from our sponsors. Across the U.S., in large cities, often controlled by Democrats, a war on the poor, and specifically on encampments of houseless people, has been increasingly waged over the past year. In San Francisco, the city's mayor, London Breed, recently declared it was time to, quote, be less tolerant of all the bullshit that has destroyed our city, in an effort to ramp up police harassment of the poor and unhoused. In Portland, city officials openly toyed with the idea of forcing, quote, up to 3,000 homeless people into massive temporary shelters staffed by the Oregon National Guard, while in California, the Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom, has pushed for, quote, care courts, which threaten to place those who do not complete state directives under involuntary hospitalization, a policy which mirrors efforts already underway in New York. Bans against camping, panhandling, sleeping in one's car have also proliferated. Last spring, for instance, Tennessee made it a felony to camp on public-owned land. In Missouri, those caught sleeping on state property could now get jail time and fines under a new law that just went into effect on January 1st. Other new laws outlaw encampments in LA next to schools and forbid houseless folks from sleeping on public transit in New York. In the progressive bastion of Asheville, North Carolina, over a dozen mutual aid organizers also now face trumped-up charges of felony littering for supporting protests against sweeps of encampments. This shift in many liberal cities to criminalize, attack, and ban encampments shows just how much the Democratic Party has continued to move to the right while embracing Republicans' line on combating rising crime. Instead of mobilizing the state's forces to house people and meet their most basic needs in a period of mass pandemic and a growing housing crisis, liberal governments across the country have instead mobilized their forces to attack some of the most vulnerable. Want to know more about what's driving these ongoing attacks on the houseless and how it relates to the housing crisis itself? We sat down with Gifford Hartman, a longtime radical organizer in the Bay Area and a former squatter.
Movements arise, like say the George Floyd uprising, and there's some changes, there's some movement towards reforms to police brutality and things like that, but then there's kind of a backlash. And I think right now we're kind of suffering through a backlash, and I think that's kind of a pattern that happens is there's pushback, kind of penal reform, trying to rein the police in a little bit, and then the backlash means just the police have more power and they have more power to really kind of brutalize unhoused people. And I think we're living through that right now. I think the trends go, like back and forth, and the pendulum has swung in the direction where right now in San Francisco, there's constant sweeps of tents and unhoused people living on the streets. There's a lot of media support given to that. And it's kind of like, as I said, the tail wags the dog, and then they start doing all this stuff. And the pushback activism hasn't really been able to kind of stand up to that and stop it or even challenge it right now, at least what I see. Booms happen and property values go up and vacancies go to almost zero. The cops crack down harder. And I think there have been periods, at least in my lifetime, here in the Bay Area, where there's kind of a lull or there's a bottom of the trough when maybe there's more vacancies, a little bit more wiggle room, the cops aren't quite so brutal. But when things are peaking or when the economy's, in its dynamic kind of high points, that's where I see the repression is the worst, because there's more people to complain. There's more people whose, values are tied to property and who are more willing to push the cops to brutalize unhoused people. And, but right now it's kind of, fraying because there's a lot of tech layoffs. Yet the agenda of sweeping tents and unhoused people off the streets is kind of still at kind of a rapid pace. So I don't know how much longer it'll last, but right now it's at a pretty high point. As we speak, the weather's awful and the sweeps haven't really stopped, and there aren't enough shelter beds to house all the unhoused folks. So it's really a crisis. It's not only just a human crisis, but it's a health crisis because people out in the cold rain are more vulnerable to getting sick and dying. And it should be the time where we're doing the opposite. We're making sure everybody's housed, and it just certainly isn't happening. Even though San Francisco, the mayors have been Democrats, I believe since the mid-60s, the Democrats aren't a monolith, and they're not all progressive, and even the progressive ones aren't that good. But the ones that are in power now, like Mayor London Breed, are moderates, and they really are believe in the police more, and they believe in using police for social crimes. And when they're not moderates, it's a little less bad, but it's not better. It's just less bad. I don't know if that really makes sense. Because I don't think there's ever been a political regime in San Francisco that wasn't pro-cop. Everybody loves the cops. Everybody sees the cops as ways to enforce the social values of society, which are private property and all that. And it just never stops. It just depends how brutal they are. And again, as I said earlier, it goes through waves. And presently we're in a brutal wave. And the only alternative to that is a less brutal wave. And so my opinion, there's never a time when the cops don't, run rapid. But right now they're actually at the high point that they've been in a long time.
And now we speak with Javier from the National Coalition on Homelessness in San Francisco. We talk about the current wave of attacks against houseless people in big cities and how they mirror historic attempts at policing and repressing the poor.
The income that you need to rent a 2-bedroom apartment by the city's own estimation, you need an hourly wage of about $61.50 to have an apartment like that. So the income gap is becoming more evident than ever nowadays. There's a 9% increase in homelessness for every $100 increase in rent. So it's like if healthcare, housing, education all gets more expensive, but wages don't go up, people are going to lose their housing. So I think people need to understand and how similar we are to the unhoused population and how important it is to recognize that we should have solidarity with each other, because if we're fighting against each other, then guess who's winning? The millionaires in the building. We're suing the city because when they do these sweeps, they're taking people's belongings, which is illegal search and seizure, and cruel and unusual punishment, because the shelter that they're offering a lot of times isn't adequate for the folks who are being swept. We're looking for permanent supportive housing for folks, and it's not there. And if you're telling people that they have to move across the street every day in the morning, then it kind of shows, I think, a social and kind of cultural understanding that mirrors the ugly laws people had in place, especially in America, for a long time, which is homeless people are not supposed to be seen and they're supposed to be criminalized.
And speaking of things that probably shouldn't be seen, again, some words from our sponsors. From resisting sweeps, setting up autonomous warming centers, to taking over vacant buildings, over the past few years, there's been a wide array of expressions of solidarity, direct action, and mutual aid in the face of attempts by the state to displace and destroy the lives of houseless people across the U.S. But these projects and actions haven't come out of nowhere. Building on the radical history of groups in the Bay Area such as the Diggers and the White Panthers, who set up free stores, grocery programs, and squatted buildings. Starting in the 1980s out of the anti-nuclear movement, peace activists began sharing free vegan food in a protest of the U.S. war budget under the banner Food Not Bombs. In the late 1980s, Food Not Bombs in San Francisco faced over 1,000 arrests for sharing free food publicly and taking part in demonstrations. Soon another group, Homes Not Jails, evolved out of the same scene and began to open up and squat vacant housing, part of a wave of other houseless activist groups that sprouted nationwide, following the economic recession of the 1980s. Chapters of Homes Not Jails worked to open squats weekly to covertly house people, while also organizing public housing takeovers, which thrust squatting into the spotlight of the mass media. Again, here's Gifford Hartman talking about squatting in the 1990s.
There had been a wave of really successful squats in the 1970s. One group was called the White Panthers that did it in the Lower Haight neighborhood, and they were modeled on the Black Panthers. So they actually squatted, but actually created community programs for things like food distribution. They defended their squats. They fortified their squats. And that was a tradition that kind of preceded my period of squatting. But so there were both looking at the squatting in Europe, but also the previous generations doing it here in San Francisco. I moved to the Bay Area in 1986. I lived in Berkeley for most of the beginning of the years I was here. From the end of World War II, in the 1940s, the population in San Francisco peaked in the mid-20th century, and then it went down. Population decreased by 100,000. In the late 80s, there were still a lot of cracks in the surface of housing, and there was a lot of empty units. There was a lot of abandoned units, and there was a lot of ability to people to find squats. And I was part of that. And there were various times where I either wasn't working or had a part-time job, and I chose as a political act to squat. And I began doing that in the late 80s, but most of my success in squatting was in the early 90s. But then I kind of ran up against the contradiction. And groups like Homes Not Jails were founded in 1992. I'd already been squatting. But then there was another wave of repression. So in 1992, the former chief of police in San Francisco, Frank Jordan, got elected mayor. And by 1993, he was doing something called the Matrix program. And the Matrix program was very much like what Giuliani did in New York with his zero tolerance for broken windows, which just cops would get tough on quality of life crimes, which means like broken windows and graffiti. But it also included food not bombs. Feedings were attacked by the police, and squatters were, even myself included, were attacked and cleared out, even in a way that was not legal. When I succeeded, we squatted covertly, and when we didn't succeed, often we were aligned with groups that, like Homes Not Jails, where they were a high-profile group, very media savvy. Well, media savvy might be an overstatement. They were kind of had a media focus, and the media focus was often a double-edged sword. It brought popular understanding of the conditions of the housing stock, but also it was a way for the police to be telegraphed exactly what we were doing and to come down and crack down on our squats.
Homes Not Jails wouldn't be the last group to take over vacant homes for housing. In the mid-2000s, Take Back the Land, based out of Miami, Florida, worked to block evictions and move unhoused families into foreclosed homes. In the present period, various grassroots groups have organized to stop the sweeping of houses and encampments. Crews in Olympia, Washington, and Austin, Texas have been successful in organizing broad campaigns. In Minneapolis, groups have mobilized mass numbers to, at times, halt evictions. In the following interview, we speak with Christian and Post from Minneapolis on the ongoing battle with the city government and police to stop attacks and sweeps on their houseless neighbors.
In the summer of 2020, when George Floyd was murdered by Minneapolis police, it raised a lot of people's awareness as to the way that our systems and practices in our city aren't really serving us. I think there was a lot of work happening in Minneapolis in particular before that in regard to policing and the way that our systems do or do not serve people. And then in 2020, the awareness just grew exponentially. And because that foundational path had been laid already, we had something to go with. And we can see the direct line between what happened to George Floyd and to the community at George Floyd Square, and the way that that also shows up in other spaces in our community, such as with our unhoused neighbors. We know that the majority of people that are living at encampments in Minneapolis are indigenous, immigrant populations or, Black Americans. And so we can see that there is, a specific need and also a real, a disparity between.
And a direct through line to all of the, oppression that 2020 kind of threw in the face of every, person with a heart.
Absolutely. And I think too, we started practicing a lot of mutual aid, more like much bigger than we ever have historically in the summer of 2020. We saw lots of people getting involved. There were encampments, throughout the city as there was, for some time because of COVID. People were able to stay outside and couldn't be evicted as easily, at that time. And we saw lots of community getting involved and doing mutual aid. And that really helped build, I think, a movement that is, sort of beautifully disorganized in many ways, because lots of people from lots of different walks of life coming together and showing up for each other. I mean, I think people started to become aware of the way that we are all connected to each other, and that when we're taking care of each other, we're all happier, we're all safer, we're actually able to meet needs, and the resources are there. It's a matter of the will.
I cannot overemphasize enough how terrible the boy Mayor Frey has been since he took power here in so-called Minneapolis. He ran on ending houselessness and was in majority funded by developers during his campaign. And we've seen what ending houselessness means to Democrats. It basically means ending visible poverty and ending the lives of houseless people. But frankly, I mean, the number of evictions over the course of the last few years has just skyrocketed. And, you know, our so-called progressive politicians love to give some money to the nonprofit industrial complex and do their private-public partnership. And then when there are people who are quote-unquote resistant to service, that's the phrase they love to use, they have all of their excuses lined up so that they can just bulldoze people's houses and kick them out of the roofs that are keeping them warm and dry. And it's just been a really eye-opening thing for a lot of people, I think, to see how our progressive quote-unquote establishment here has just fully committed to jackboot thuggery, all in the name of clearing the streets and making it so that people in their kind of 4-story mixed-use condos can have a beautiful view without having to see the poverty that lifestyle necessitates.
You know, in the summer of 2020, there were several council members who committed to defunding the police. However, that did not come to fruition. Since that time, there's been increases in the budget to policing in Minneapolis. No decreases, only increases. The police haven't been able to spend their whole budget, and yet the city continues to pour more money into them. And what we're seeing happen is unhoused people come together to keep one another safe, and also so community is able to stay connected with them. And, you know, we'll be in an encampment, and then various levels of government will come in and displace them. And so the people don't have anywhere else to go. So they need to move to a new space together. So what's happening is not housing. What's happening is not even laying a foundation for somebody to be able to get the services or support that they may want or need. What's happening is displacement. When somebody hears about an eviction potentially happening, it becomes a situation it's almost kind of magical that people come together, and it is kind of chaotic, but it always comes together. And we end up having, whether it's people that are doing cop watch or are just neighbors, like we had neighbors show up on the first day, the day that the quarry was planned to be evicted on December 28th. I can't tell you how many different people that just live in that area were coming up and asking questions, and were appalled at the response from the city. Because really the quarry encampment was in a space that you could barely see it. You wouldn't know it was there if you didn't know it was there, you know? And, we're talking about by the last day, the day that it was evicted, there were 8 people there and over 150 police officers. It was bonkers. And that extreme response is something that when you see it, you can't unsee it. And so we come together in what, you know, you get in where you fit in with whatever skills you have, whatever gifts you have, whatever time you have, you know, and a lot of us show up because we are people who have experienced other forms of trauma or have seen and experienced other forms of oppression too. And you can't unsee it once you do.
In the last few years, mutual aid and autonomous disaster relief efforts have informed projects like Heater Block, the squatting of land for people displaced by climate change-fueled fires, and the setting up of autonomous warming centers in the middle of winter. In the winter of 2021, autonomous groups across Texas also mobilized when the state's electrical grid failed, and hundreds of people tragically died due to lack of heat. Autonomous groups have also worked to directly house people. In the Los Angeles area, this has looked like houseless folks taking over homes owned by Caltrans, and various groups in the Pacific Northwest occupying and demanding access to hotels in the dead of winter. In Philadelphia in 2020, housing activists squatted and then won the keys to homes for upwards of 50 unhoused families in the midst of the George Floyd rebellion. And there have been other success stories as well. In Boise, Idaho, after months of ongoing protests by houseless folks and their supporters, the city was pushed to greenlight the building of hundreds of housing units. In Berkeley, California last summer, people once again tore down the fences surrounding People's Park and destroyed machines, stopping the destruction of the autonomous enclave once again. In Sacramento, California, houseless people and their supporters beat back an eviction attempt at Camp Resolution, a parking lot which is home to people living in their vehicles and RVs. Here's 2 Camp Resolution residents, Sharon and Satara, who speak on the deadly impact of sweeps.
I think that the biggest thing is like being treated inhumanely, you know what I mean, or rudely, or like you're an animal, or they're very mean to people, you know what I mean. When they sweep you, they take people's stuff and just throw it out. No, don't matter if it matters to them, or you know what I mean, or you know, which, creates mental health issues for some people because people get traumatized from stuff like that. You know what I mean? You just coming in and the only place that they have that they can call home or a place of shelter and, stormy times like this, they come and even now while it's raining and make them move and tell them, they got to go, throw their things out or, make them leave without it. Whatever they, whatever, no matter if it's important to them or not, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the most messed up part because, like, I have a friend out here who lost, her child's ashes, you know what I mean?
Half of the people that were we lose contact with, and every time they sweep, that's another half, and they're just diminishing. Where are people going? They're just disappearing.
And for the, people who do need, like, other help with other things, health things and stuff like that, the harm reduction people and stuff like that come out and give people things they need, you know what I mean? They move you around, then you can't be found. People can die like that.
Receive services.
And people die like that all the time. Especially, when they move us around, sometimes we got to go to areas that are not necessarily safe, especially the women, you know what I mean? Women die out here all the time.
They separate us. Camp Resolution was formed because this lot that we're on was part of the original siting plan, and they spent $617,000 on this for a fence and a parking lot, and promised folks that they were going to get them into little tiny houses or trailers so they can get back on their feet and get housing. They swept them off the lot. As soon as they were finished with this, they came and viciously swept them off of the other side of the property that we're on, and put a fence up and promised those people, and they got nothing, and then didn't even bother to contact them or anything, and just left those people hanging after they signed up for all the services and were denied. And my sister-in-law was one of those people, and she's a quadriplegic, and she's still waiting for housing. And we weren't going to have another winter of her being down on the county side in the water. So that's why we started it. And we're here for safety, so we can get back up on our feet. We're human beings.
Not to mention, like, more than half the camp, a majority of the camp, there are males that live here. So please don't get me wrong, but this is a camp of majority women, you know what I mean, right, who live out here. And, a lot of us, we're homeless, but we're not bums, you know what I mean? Like, we're not, we have regular lives like everyone else. We have family, we have friends, you know what I mean? Like, we take care of each other, you know what I'm saying? Like, and a lot of us have been camping right here for years. Some of us years up against the county and the city. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
But for every success, sweeps remain a daily constant in the United States, and many attempts to push back by houseless folks and their supporters are met with extreme resistance from law enforcement. So I'm curious what you all think. How can communities continue to organize for change in the face of this brutality?
Something that comes to mind is just kind of more of some things that have already been happening, basically. And I'm thinking of Echo Park that you brought up. And the encampment at Echo Park was really interesting to me because that's a neighborhood in LA, and it grew to maybe sort of 200 to 300 people living there. And as it went on, it kind of like a sense of community developed pretty strongly there, with support from people in the neighborhood too. And people had set up like a garden, a community kitchen. There were like meetings, even showers near the end. Like, it was actually kind of thriving. Like, it was like doing well. And people were like pretty like, I don't know, politicized or like aware of like what's going on and talking about it and sharing with each other. And yeah, people coming together to resist sweeps and like threats of sweeps of the park. And the response to it was one of the most like heavy-handed, sort of disproportionate seeming things that I'd ever seen, where the city had been threatening that they were going to do a sweep, and they were saying they were going to get everyone into housing. It's like this humanitarian offer of secure housing to people. But they came with like 400 cops and like all the rest of like LAPD's full force, the helicopters and just like everything. They blocked entrances into Echo Park to stop supporters coming from out of the neighborhood. And basically, evicted people, fought with people resisting, and then put a fence up very quickly, like during this whole thing, and closed the park off. And that fence is still up. And that's like, I don't know, what is it now? A year and a half or something, maybe 2 years, that fence has been up. And something I think is like interesting about this example is I really think that the reason that response was so heavy handed is because the very existence of it was disrupting this logic of like rent and landlordism and stuff. Like people were reclaiming the commons, basically, like reclaiming public space, using it to meet their needs. And this was incredibly threatening to the city. And they needed to shut it down and sort of turn the park back into recreation for middle class people, basically. And I think, you know, what we've talked about already, like, Tom, what you were talking about with like enclosure and stuff, like I really see that these sweeps like this is just a continuation of this and Echo Park, in a really big way. And what you were saying, Mar, about just like what happens when we challenge that logic being the most like threatening thing to them, you know, of just like what happens if it was just like this homeless camp survives and then another encampment, and it basically disrupts everything we know about property and rent and everything. Anyway, so I think just more of that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Sophie. I think it's like more of what's happening. Like currently in New York, there's still sweeps happening. Like, DHS, Department of Homeless Services, puts up these like, sweep notices. And the way it works is that when these sweeps notices go up, like there's a group of people who let each other know that a sweep is about to happen. People show up to the people who are about to be swept. I hate that word, swept. Oh my gosh, that's so disgusting. What can we use instead of swept? Treated badly by evil Eric Adams. I don't know, maybe we could use that. But anyway, so like, so people will go and talk to the people who are in the encampment who are going to be swept and ask them like, what type of support would you like? Like, do you want us to help us move your stuff? Do you want us to stand, you know, when the cops and like, so the sanitation department comes usually during these cleanups and like throws away people's things. And because, you know, if you don't serve capitalism, your stuff, you don't matter. So definitely your stuff doesn't matter. One thing that has been happening is that people have been showing up for people who are about to be, have their things thrown out and either moving the things for them or supporting them or standing in the way in front of the police or like documenting it. And I think that's like a huge way to just like show up right now if you can. Use sick leave, block out time on your calendar at work. If you know something happening down the street, like this is like something like you could do now. And I think that's really important. Like this is solidarity that we should show and we should show up for our comrades because they are on the ground of fighting for us having housing as a human right. And that's why we should show up for them and to support them. Another item that I wanted to bring up, I don't know if y'all heard about Anarchy Row, which happened last year, where like SRG, which is a strategic response group, showed up. This is a counterterrorism group, y'all. Showed up to get people out of an encampment in Tompkins Square, which was deemed Anarchy Row. I think it was like 5 people. 5 people! Brought in SRG or counterterrorism groups. It just goes to show you the extent to which like houseless people taking up public space is a threat to the idea of property as we know it, is a threat to capitalists, and is a threat to landlords like Eric Adams. Eric Adams is a landlord. I don't know if y'all know that. The New York City mayor is a landlord if you need to know anything as to why they're sweeping homeless people. Landlords run everything, and they have rats. Like Eric Adams, because he had rats and he was supposed to pay a fine and he didn't pay a fine because he's a landlord. I guess just going back to that is like, yeah, show up for people now. Like the need now is like when sweeps are happening is for people to show up in place for people. And the other part of it, I want to say this, and this is a wild idea, but I've been thinking about it for a while. What if we all stopped paying rent? What if we all did? What if we got together with all of our friends and stopped paying rent? And I know this is wild, and I know some people might be like, oh no, Marcella, we're going to get evicted. But what if we paid rent and we all fought the cops and they're trying to pay us when they're trying to evict all of us? So like that's another part of it is like showing up to people's evictions, trying to come up together to come up with a long strategy. Because houseless people right now are fighting for us to like have housing as a human right. We can meet them on the other end and say, actually, we're not going to pay rent as long as you're doing this because that's like solidarity.
When I'm thinking about how to resist displacement, you know, what I go back to is squatter movements that existed in Europe, right? Like the social center movements in the 70s and 80s. But also squatting that happened in the Rust Belt in the mid-2000s, right? And like, what was unique about those situations? Like others have existed, obviously, but what was unique about those situations is that squatting became about more than just space. It also became about autonomy and self-defense, right? So in those situations, what would happen is in these Rust Belt squats, people would like lock down a whole street and take over a house. And then that was just their space, you know, and the cops just couldn't get back there or didn't want to get back there. And some of those squats held out for years, like years and years and years. And we see that in Europe too. And so what that does though is it accomplishes something really important, which I think we have to sort of shift in our discussions of this question, which is that the question isn't just about housing. The question's about space, right? And very specifically, how we understand space. So currently, when we talk about a neighborhood, or when city politicians talk about a neighborhood, they don't mean what I think a lot of us mean. Like, a lot of us, when we talk about our neighborhoods, we mean like our neighbors, right? The people that live around the corner, the old lady up the street that feeds the cats, like whatever it happens to be, you know, like you have a community that you live in, at least where I live. When city politicians talk about a neighborhood, what they mean is real estate. They mean this fragmented space of commodified housing where individual houses can just be slotted in and slotted out, and new residents could just be slotted in and slotted out, and the space becomes reduced down to its physical form, right? And within all capitalist understandings of space, that is what happens. Space gets reduced down to the commodification of that space, right? And so when we're talking about that inscription into our spaces, you know, I was saying earlier, that doesn't occur without the ability to get arrested for trespassing. And so this becomes a fight against the police as much as it's a fight against housing, because at the end of the day, the enforcement of that structuring of space comes through the projection of police force into that space, right? Whether that's passive, things like surveillance, whether that's active, things like sending a counterterrorism team to evict 5 people from a park in Manhattan. And so as we're kind of like looking through this, we can take some interesting sort of examples. I mean, the Paris Commune had a whole discourse that talked just about how they were going to rebuild the city. Like, what is the city going to look like without property? How are we going to restructure our use of space? Who gets to decide how to use these big public spaces, right? These were the big discussions that were happening. The Situationists International had a whole discourse on building conceptual cities and avant-garde cities, and, you know, graffiti was a big part of that. Because what is graffiti? Graffiti is the marking of people's presence in space. Why do cities crack down on graffiti so hard? Every single time someone puts a tag up, that's a gap in police coverage that's being marked. Literally every single time, right? And so when we're talking about these questions, we have to push this into a question of capitalism in general, but that makes it a question of the state. We can't talk about capitalism in isolation from that. And so we have to really talk about how our spaces are fragmented and the ways that things like even encampments or squats or things like this that are defended, that are able to be sort of preserved isn't the right word, are able to maintain their autonomy. Those become sort of the models of different ways to live in some ways, right? These become the places where people are experimenting with different types of living, whether it's by choice or not. But these are the spaces that get eliminated because of that specific dynamic, right? That they are fundamentally violating the entire concept of property in their very existence. And that's why we see the crackdowns happening the way that they are. Democrats are just as, you know, complicit in that as Republicans are. It's functionally no different, especially after the George Floyd uprising, where you really see in a lot of Democratic cities them hiring a lot more cops, giving them a lot more guns, like doing the same stuff that happened in more conservative cities, right? The gap is almost non-existent.
That's going to do it for us. Once again, this has been the It's Going Down crew squatting the offices of It Could Happen Here. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you soon.
Hey, we'll be back Monday with more episodes every week from now until the heat death of the universe.
It Could Happen Here is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more podcasts from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find sources for It Could Happen Here updated monthly at coolzonemedia.com/sources. Thanks for listening.
Time for a sofa upgrade? Introducing Anabay Sofas, where designer style meets budget-friendly prices. Anabay brings you the ultimate in furniture innovation with a modular design that allows you to rearrange your space effortlessly. Perfect for both small and large spaces, Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa inside and out. Say goodbye to stains and messes with liquid and stain-resistant fabrics that make cleaning easy. Liquid simply slide right off. Designed for custom comfort, our high-resilience foam lets you choose between a sink-in feel or a supportive memory foam blend. Plus, our pet-friendly, stain-resistant fabrics ensure your sofa stays beautiful for years. Don't compromise quality for price. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your living space today. Sofas start at just $699 with no risk returns and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get up to 60% off, plus free shipping and free returns. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
You're listening to a podcast. So you're doing something else too, like maybe scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving places you like without thinking you'll get them. Because that's what house hunting has become. But Redfin isn't built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents, which means when you find a place you love, you've got a real shot at getting it. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Premier Protein. It's for getting after life, not just fitness. With 30 grams of protein, 160 calories, and no sugar added. Helping people fuel their joyful lives. With Premier Protein, you can say yes to more. Whether it's crushing a big presentation at work, building an epic fort with the kids, or hitting the hiking trail with friends. Premier Protein offers delicious flavors like cafe latte, chocolate, caramel, vanilla, strawberry, and cake batter, to name a few. Find your favorite flavor at premierprotein.com.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.